Fourth and last part. Oh, where in the world have there been greater foolishness than with the compassionate, and what in the world has caused more suffering than the foolishness of the compassionate? Misfortune to all those who love, but do not have a higher perspective that transcends their compassion. So spoke the devil to me once. Even God has his hell. It is his love for humanity. And recently I heard him say these words, God is dead. Out of his compassion for humanity, God has died. Zarathustra II, The Pitiful. Chapter 61, The Honey Sacrifice. And again, moons and years passed over Zarathustra's soul, and he paid little attention to them, but his hair turned white. One day, as he sat on a stone in front of his cave and gazed into the distance, his animals gathered thoughtfully around him and stood in front of him. Zarathustra, they said, are you perhaps looking for your happiness? What does my happiness matter? He replied. I've long ceased to strive for happiness. I strive for my work. Zarathustra, the animals persisted, you speak as if you have too much of everything. Are you not sitting by a sky-blue lake of happiness? You jest, Zarathustra replied with a smile. You chose that simile well. But you know that my happiness is heavy, not like a flowing wave of water, but like molten pitch. The animals circled around him once more. Zarathustra, they said, is that why you are becoming paler and darker, despite your white and flaxen hair? It seems you are sitting in pitch. Zarathustra laughed and said, you little jesters, you know how to choose your words, but my happiness is like honey in my veins, making my blood thicker and my soul calmer. The animals approached him again and said, Zarathustra, why don't you ascend a high mountain today? The air is pure, and you can see more of the world than ever. Zarathustra agreed, saying, your suggestion is wise and in line with my desires. I will ascend a high mountain today, but ensure there's honey ready for me, yellow, white, good, ice-cold, golden honeycomb honey, for I intend to make a honey sacrifice. Once Zarathustra reached the summit and sent his animals home, he stood alone and looked around. Then he spoke. When I spoke of sacrifices and honey sacrifices, it was a playful way of speaking, a useful folly. Here, on this mountaintop, I can speak more freely than in front of mountain caves and hermits' domestic animals. What am I sacrificing? I use what is given to me, a spender with 1,000 hands. How can I call that a sacrifice? And when I desired honey, it was only a desire for bait, sweet mucus, and mucilage that even the mouths of growling bears and strange, sulky, evil birds crave, just as water is their craving. The best bait for hunters and fishermen. If the world is like a dark forest of animals and a playground for all wild hunters, then I see it as a boundless, rich sea, full of colorful fish and crabs that even the gods might envy. A sea teeming with wondrous things, large and small, especially the human world. Towards this human abyss, I cast my golden fishing rod and say, open up, you human abyss. Open up and offer me your fish and shining crabs. With my best bait, I will lure the strangest human fish today, those who bite at my hidden hooks and ascend to my height. For I am a drawer, a trainer, a training master, who advised himself long ago, become what you are. So, let people come up to me, for I still await the signs that it's time for me to descend among them. I have not yet gone down as I must among people, so I wait here, clever and scornful, on high mountains, neither impatient nor patient, for I have even unlearned patience because I no longer suffer. My fate gives me time. Perhaps it has forgotten me, or hides behind a large stone, catching flies. I am well disposed toward my eternal fate because it doesn't hurry me. It leaves me time for merriment and mischief, which is why I climbed this high mountain to catch fish. Did anyone ever catch fish on high mountains? Although it may be a foolish pursuit, it's better than waiting below, growing solemn with impatience. I don't want to be an impatient one who shouts down into the valleys, listen, or I'll scourge you with the scourge of God. Not that I hold a grudge against those wrathful ones. They are amusing to me. I am prepared for my eternal fate, and so I stand securely on this ground, an eternal ground, a hard bedrock on this highest, hardest mountain ridge where all winds converge, as if at the point of a storm, asking where from, where to, and where next. Here laugh my hearty, healthy wickedness, cast down your glittering, scornful laughter from the high mountains. Entice the finest human fish for me with your glittering bait, and whatever belongs to me in all seas, fish it out for me. Bring it up to me, for that's what I wait for, the wickedest of all fish catchers. Cast out my fishing hook, my bait of happiness. Drip your sweetest dew, the honey of my heart. Bite into the belly of all black affliction, my fishing hook. Look out, my eye. How many seas around me, what dawning human futures, and above me, what rosy red stillness, what unclouded silence. In The Honey Sacrifice, Zarathustra explores the idea of sacrifice and fulfillment. His dialogue with his animals reveals his indifference to conventional happiness, as he instead feels a heavy, almost burdensome joy, a joy likened to molten pitch, weighing him down rather than lifting him up. This reveals Zarathustra's complex relationship with satisfaction and purpose. For him, joy isn't a fleeting pleasure, but a dense, profound essence that fuels his soul. As he ascends the mountain, he speaks of casting his golden fishing rod into the depths of humanity, seeking to catch people who will resonate with his message. This symbolizes his desire to attract seekers of truth and wisdom, people who would join him on this journey of inner transformation. The honey sacrifice represents Zarathustra's willingness to offer himself, his wisdom and insights, as bait for others, drawing them to the heights of understanding. But it's not just altruism. He is a fish catcher, skillfully and playfully luring others, while remaining detached and waiting for the right time to re-enter society. Ultimately, Zarathustra's sacrifice is a paradox. He's both offering himself and holding back, savoring the calm solitude of the mountain while awaiting those who are ready to bite. It's an interplay of ambition, scorn, patience, and readiness, a high-stakes waiting game on the peaks of existential awareness. Chapter 62. The Cry of Distress. The next day, Zarathustra sat on the stone in front of his cave while his animals ventured out into the world to bring back new food and honey. He had exhausted the old honey completely. As he sat there with a stick in his hand, tracing the shadow of his figure on the ground and lost in thought, he suddenly noticed another shadow beside his own. Startled, he looked around and stood up to find the soothsayer standing beside him. This was the same soothsayer whom Zarathustra had once invited to dine with him, the one who had proclaimed the great weariness of life and taught that all is alike, nothing is worth it, the world is without meaning, knowledge strangles. But something had changed in the soothsayer's countenance since then, and when Zarathustra looked into his eyes, he was once again taken aback by the darkness and foreboding he saw there. The soothsayer, sensing what was happening in Zarathustra's soul, wiped his face as if trying to erase the impression. Zarathustra did the same. After a moment of silence, they reached out and shook hands, a sign that they wanted to recognize each other once more. "Welcome here," said Zarathustra, "you soothsayer of great weariness. Your previous stay as my guest was not in vain. Eat and drink with me today, and forgive me for having a cheerful old man at the table with you." "A cheerful old man," replied the soothsayer, shaking his head. "Whoever you are, or want to be, O Zarathustra, you have been here at the summit for the longest time. But soon your ship will no longer rest on dry land." "Do I rest on dry land?" asked Zarathustra, laughing. "The waves around your mountain," answered the soothsayer, "are rising higher and higher, waves of great distress and affliction. Soon they will lift your ship and carry you away." Zarathustra fell silent, puzzled. "Do you hear nothing yet?" continued the soothsayer. "Can't you hear it rushing and roaring from the depths?" Zarathustra listened and heard a long, agonizing cry that echoed from one abyss to another. None of them wanted to keep it. It sounded so terrible. "You evil messenger," said Zarathustra at last. "That is a cry of distress, a human cry. It may have come from a dark sea. But why should human suffering concern me? Do you know what my last sin is called?" "Pity," answered the soothsayer with overflowing emotion, raising both hands. "O Zarathustra, I have come to tempt you to your last sin." And as soon as those words were spoken, the cry echoed again, longer and more alarming, and much closer. "Do you hear it? Do you hear it, O Zarathustra?" cried the soothsayer. "The cry is about you. It calls for you. Come, come, come. It's time, the highest time." Zarathustra was left speechless, confused and shaken. Finally he asked, hesitating within himself, "And who is it that is calling me?" "But you know it well," replied the soothsayer passionately. "Why do you hide from it? It is the higher man who is calling you." "The higher man?" exclaimed Zarathustra, horrified. "What does he want? What does he want here?" His skin was covered in perspiration, and he trembled. But the soothsayer paid no attention to Zarathustra's alarm. Instead, he listened intently in the downward direction. After a long while of silence, he looked behind and saw Zarathustra standing there, trembling. "O Zarathustra," he began with a sorrowful voice, "you do not stand there like someone whose happiness makes them giddy. You will have to dance, or you might tumble down. But even if you were to dance before me, and perform all your acrobatics, no one could say, 'Behold, here dances the last joyous man.' In vain would anyone come to this height seeking him. They might find caves and hiding places for the solitary ones, but not the mines of luck, treasure chambers, or new veins of happiness. Happiness. How could one find happiness among those who are buried alive and alone? Must I still seek the last happiness on the happy isles, far away in forgotten seas? But all is the same. Nothing is worth it. No search is of any use. There are no more happy isles." The soothsayer sighed, and with his last sigh, Zarathustra regained his composure, like someone emerging from a deep chasm into the light. "No, no, 3 times no," he exclaimed with a strong voice, stroking his beard. "I know better. There are still happy isles. Stop sighing about it, you sack of sorrow. Enough of your rain cloud of morning misery. Do I not stand here wet from your misery, drenched like a dog? Now I shake myself and run away from you to become dry again. Don't be surprised. Do I seem rude to you? But this is my court. As for the higher man, well, I will go look for him in those forests where his cry came from. Perhaps he is there, in danger from some evil beast. He is in my territory, and he will come to no harm there. And indeed, there are many evil beasts around me." With these words, Zarathustra turned to leave. Then the soothsayer said, "O Zarathustra, you are a rogue. I know it well. You want to get rid of me. You'd rather run into the forest and set traps for evil beasts. But what good will it do you? In the evening, you will have me again. I will sit in your cave, patient and heavy like a block, and wait for you." "So be it," Zarathustra shouted back as he walked away. "And what's mine in my cave also belongs to you, my guest. If you find honey there, just lick it up, you growling bear, and sweeten your soul. Because in the evening, we both want to be in good spirits. In good spirits and joyful because this day has come to an end. And you yourself shall dance to my tunes like my dancing bear. You don't believe it? You shake your head? Well, cheer up, old bear. But I am also a soothsayer." Thus spoke Zarathustra. In the cry of distress, Zarathustra encounters the soothsayer, a figure embodying despair and nihilism, who warns of the higher man in need of salvation. This higher man, representing humanity's potential, calls for Zarathustra's attention, testing his values. Zarathustra wrestles with pity, a sin in his philosophy, as the soothsayer tempts him to engage in what he views as a compassion that might entangle him in human suffering. Zarathustra's response to this call marks his inner conflict. He despises the soothsayer's fatalism, yet feels compelled to seek the higher man, embodying the paradox of his journey. He resists the despair brought by the soothsayer, asserting that there are still happy isles, or realms of possibility and hope, which he clings to as he chooses action over despair. Ultimately, Zarathustra embraces a defiant resilience, asserting that he'll face the higher man on his own terms, not as a rescuer bound by pity, but as a guide with strength and autonomy. This encounter reveals the delicate balance Zarathustra must strike between his ideals of self-overcoming and the inevitable connection to the cries of others seeking meaning and transcendence. Chapter 63. Talk with the Kings. Encounter with Kings, a dialogue on kingship, society, and the higher man. Before Zarathustra had been an hour on his way in the mountains and forests, he saw a strange procession. 2 kings, adorned with crowns, purple girdles, and colorful attire like flamingos, were walking on the path he was about to descend. They were leading a loaded donkey. Zarathustra, astonished, said to himself, "What do these kings want in my domain?" He quickly hid behind a thicket to observe them. As the kings approached, Zarathustra mumbled to himself, "Strange, strange, what is this? 2 kings and only 1 donkey." The 2 kings stopped and smiled, looking towards the direction of Zarathustra's voice. Then they glanced at each other. The king on the right said, "We sometimes have similar thoughts among ourselves, but we don't voice them." However, the king on the left shrugged and replied, "Perhaps it's a goatherd or an anchorite who has spent too much time among rocks and trees. Living without society corrupts good manners." "Good manners?" retorted the other king, his tone bitter. "What are we avoiding then? Isn't it good society, our so-called good society? It's better to live among anchorites and goatherds than with our gilded, false, overly adorned populace, even though they call it good society." "Or they call it nobility," added the king on the left, shaking his head. "But everything there is false and corrupt, especially the blood, thanks to old diseases and worse healers. The best and dearest to me now is a sturdy peasant, coarse, crafty, stubborn, and resilient. That is the noblest type at present." "The peasant is the best for now, and the peasant type should reign," declared the king on the right. "But we are living in a realm of the populace. I will no longer tolerate anything imposed upon me. The populace, that means a jumble of everything. Populace jumble, where everything is mixed with everything else," the king on the left agreed. "Saints and swindlers, and every creature from Noah's Ark. Good manners. Everything is false and corrupt among us. No one knows how to show reverence anymore, and that's what we're fleeing from. They are intrusive and gaudy dogs, gilding palm leaves. This disgusts me. We kings have also become false. We've dressed ourselves in the faded pomp of our ancestors, becoming showpieces for the most foolish and cunning individuals who seek power. We are not the first men, but we have to represent them," continued the right king with bitterness. "We've grown tired of this charade. We've avoided the rabble, the noise, the ambition, and the bad breath. Shameful. To live among the rabble, to represent the first men among them, disgusting. What a loathing. What does it matter to us kings?" "It seems your old ailment has returned," remarked the left king. "Your disgust has returned, my poor brother. You know that someone might be listening." At this moment, Zarathustra, who had been listening to their conversation, revealed himself. He approached the kings and said, "He who listens to you and is pleased to do so is called Zarathustra. I am Zarathustra, the one who once said, 'What does it matter about kings?' Forgive me, I rejoiced when I heard you say, 'What does it matter about us kings?'" Then Zarathustra asked, "But what brings you to my domain? Perhaps you have found what I seek on your journey, the higher man." The kings beat their breasts and exclaimed together, "We are recognized. Your words have severed the darkness in our hearts with the sword of your speech. You have discovered our distress. We are on our way to find the higher man, the one who is higher than us, even though we are kings. We are bringing this donkey to him, because the highest man should also be the highest lord on earth. There is no greater misfortune in human destiny than when the powerful are not also the best. Everything becomes false, distorted, and monstrous. And when the powerful are the lowest, more beast than human, the populace rises in honor, and even the virtue of the populace claims, 'I alone am virtue.'" Zarathustra marveled at their wisdom and replied, "What have I just heard? You kings possess such wisdom. I am enchanted, and I already feel the inspiration to compose a rhyme about it, though it may not be suitable for all ears. I abandoned consideration for long ears a long time ago, so here we go." At this point, the donkey made itself heard, saying with malice, "Ye-ah." It was once, perhaps in the first year of our Lord, Zarathustra began to recite with a sardonic smile, "Drunk without wine, the Sibyl thus deplored, how things go wrong, decline, decline, the world has never sunk so low, Rome has become a harlot, Caesar a beast, and God has become a Jew." Kings yearning for war, nostalgia and inspiration in Zarathustra's presence. The kings were delighted by Zarathustra's rhymes. The king on the right spoke first, expressing his gratitude for having come to see Zarathustra. He explained that they had seen a distorted image of Zarathustra in their enemy's mirror, making him appear like a devil, and they were initially afraid. However, hearing Zarathustra's words in person had a profound impact on them. Zarathustra's teachings about the value of peace as a means to new wars had stirred something deep within them. They found his warlike words inspiring, and it reminded them of their fathers, who had a thirst for life and war. The mention of swords and the desire for battle resonated with their ancestral heritage. The kings acknowledged that their ancestors had become fond of life when swords clashed like red-spotted serpents, and they longed for war. They believed that a sword thirsted for blood and sparkled with desire. As the kings shared their thoughts and nostalgia for war, Zarathustra felt a temptation to mock their eagerness, but he restrained himself. He informed them that his cave was nearby and invited them to visit. However, he also mentioned that he had to respond to a cry of distress, leaving the kings to wait. Zarathustra found irony in the fact that kings, who were known for their power and authority, would have to wait, but he recognized the virtue of patience, even in kings, as a valuable ability. Thus spoke Zarathustra. In Talk with the Kings, Nietzsche explores the conflict between societal norms and the pursuit of a higher ideal through Zarathustra's dialogue with two disillusioned kings. The kings, weary of their hollow positions, express contempt for good society, which they view as corrupted and false. They yearn for authenticity, frustrated by their own royal personas, reduced to performative relics among a populace they disdain. Zarathustra's interaction with the kings reveals his belief that true leadership isn't defined by status, but by inner virtue and vision, the higher man. Their meeting, filled with satire and irony, underscores Nietzsche's critique of traditional authority and societal values. The king's nostalgia for war contrasts with Zarathustra's desire for a new kind of strength that transcends violence, valuing purpose over power. Zarathustra challenges them to look beyond superficial honor, alluding to a nobler path that rejects mere appearances. Chapter 64. The Leech. As Zarathustra continued on his thoughtful journey, descending through forests and across moory bottoms, he unintentionally stepped on a man. Suddenly, a cry of pain, curses, and invectives burst forth from the man. Startled, Zarathustra raised his stick and struck the man in his fright. However, he quickly regained his composure and realized the folly of his actions. "Forgive me," he said to the man he had struck, who had gotten up and was now angry and seated. "Forgive me and listen to a parable first. Imagine a wanderer dreaming of distant things on a lonely road, stumbling upon a sleeping dog basking in the sun. Both wake up and snap at each other like mortal enemies, both driven by fear. It happened to us just like that. And yet, how little was needed for them to show affection to each other. That dog and the lonely one, are they not both lonely beings?" "Whoever you are," the trodden man responded, still angry, "your parable gets too close to me, not just your foot. Am I then a dog?" With that, he got up, revealing his naked arm, which had been hidden in the swamp. Initially, he had lain outstretched on the ground, concealed like someone waiting to trap swamp game. "What on earth are you doing?" Zarathustra exclaimed in alarm as he noticed the bleeding arm. "What has harmed you? Has a vicious creature bitten you, you unfortunate soul?" The injured man laughed, still angry, and replied, "Why should it matter to you? Here I am at home and in my domain. Let anyone question me if they wish, but I'll hardly respond to a fool." "You are mistaken," Zarathustra said sympathetically, holding the man gently. "You are mistaken. Here, you are not at home, but in my territory, and here, no harm shall come to anyone. Call me whatever you will. I am who I must be. I call myself Zarathustra. Well, the way to Zarathustra's cave is up there. It's not far. Will you not come and tend to your wounds at my home? You've had a rough time in this life. First a beast bit you, and then a man trod upon you." When the trodden man heard the name Zarathustra, he was transformed. "What is happening to me?" he exclaimed. "Who occupies my thoughts so much in this life as this man, Zarathustra, and that blood-sucking creature, the leech? I lay here by this swamp like a fisherman for the leeches, and my outstretched arm had already been bitten 10 times when an even finer leech bit into my blood. Zarathustra himself. Oh happiness, oh miracle. Praise this day that led me into the swamp. Praise the best and liveliest cupping glass that currently exists. Praise the great conscience leech, Zarathustra." The trodden man spoke, and Zarathustra rejoiced at his words and their refined and reverential style. "Who are you?" Zarathustra asked, extending his hand. "There is much to discuss between us, but already it seems that clear daylight is dawning." "I am the spiritually conscientious one," the man replied, "and when it comes to matters of the spirit, few are more rigorous, strict and severe than I am, except for the one from whom I learned it, Zarathustra himself. Better to know nothing than to half know many things. Better to be a fool on one's own account than to be a sage for the approval of others. I go to the essence, whether it is great or small, called swamp or sky. A handbreadth of essence is enough for me, as long as it is genuine basis and ground. I can stand on a handbreadth of basis. In true knowledge, there is neither greatness nor smallness." Are you perhaps an expert on leeches? Zarathustra inquired. Do you investigate leeches to their ultimate essence, you conscientious one? Oh, Zarathustra, the trodden man replied, that would be an immense undertaking. How could I presume to do so? What I truly master and understand is the brain of the leech. That is my world. And it is a world. Forgive my pride in this matter, for here I have no equal. That's why I said, here I am at home. How long have I dedicated myself to this one thing, the brain of the leech, so that the slippery truth no longer escapes me here. This is my domain. I have cast aside everything else, and everything else has become indifferent to me for the sake of this knowledge. My spiritual conscience demands that I should know one thing and not know all else. The semi-spiritual, the hazy, the vague and the visionary are loathsome to me. Where my honesty ends, there I am blind and wish to remain blind. But where I want to know, there I also want to be honest, which means severe, rigorous, strict, cruel, and inexorable. Because you once said, O Zarathustra, spirit is life that cuts into life itself. That led and enticed me to your doctrine, and truly, I have increased my own knowledge with my own blood. As the evidence suggests, Zarathustra interrupted, for the blood was still flowing from the conscientious one's naked arm, bitten by 10 leeches. You, strange fellow, teach me much with your very presence, you yourself, but perhaps I shouldn't pour it all into your rigorous ear. Well then, we part ways here, but I hope to find you again. The way up to my cave is there. Tonight, you shall be my honored guest. I would like to make amends to your body for my unintentional misstep upon you, and I'm thinking about that. However, a cry of distress has called me away from you for now. Thus spoke Zarathustra. In the Leech, Zarathustra encounters a strange, fiercely disciplined figure, the spiritually conscientious one. This man is fully immersed in his meticulous study of a single subject, the brain of the leech. Zarathustra's accidental misstep triggers a confrontation, but it quickly transforms as the man, recognizing Zarathustra, reveres him as the ultimate conscience leech. This reverence stems from Zarathustra's teaching that true knowledge requires relentless self-examination, cutting deeply and unforgivingly into one's life to extract essential truths. The spiritually conscientious one embodies Nietzsche's concept of intellectual rigor, devoted to a form of heroic knowledge. He has renounced all distractions, rejecting superficial understanding in favor of knowing one thing profoundly. For him, the leech's brain symbolizes this pursuit, something small yet vital, which demands complete dedication to uncover its essence. By focusing solely on this subject, he rejects vague or general knowledge, upholding an almost ascetic ideal that, where honesty ends, blindness begins. This reflects Nietzsche's critique of complacency in knowledge, pushing for a deeper exploration that, though narrow, provides authentic grounding. Through their interaction, Zarathustra respects the man's devotion, but he also sees its limitations. There is an unspoken warning here. While complete devotion to a single truth is admirable, it may leave one isolated, blind to broader experiences and insights. Nevertheless, Zarathustra invites him to be a guest in his cave, acknowledging that this kind of intense search for knowledge, even at personal cost, aligns with his own philosophy of life as something to be actively interrogated and transformed. The chapter celebrates the transformative power of self-imposed intellectual rigor, even as it hints at the need to balance this with openness to other truths. Chapter 65. The Magician. The Magician's Lament, a cry for warmth and love. But as Zarathustra went around a rock, he spotted another man on the same path not far below him. This man was wildly flailing his limbs and eventually fell to the ground on his belly. Zarathustra said to his heart, "Stop! He must be the higher man. From him came that dreadful cry of distress. I will see if I can help him." Zarathustra rushed to where the man lay on the ground, but found an elderly man with trembling limbs and fixed eyes. Despite Zarathustra's efforts to lift him and help him stand, it was in vain. The unfortunate man seemed oblivious to Zarathustra's presence, continuously looking around with agitated gestures, as if he were abandoned and isolated from the world. Finally, after much trembling, convulsions, and curling into himself, he began to lament as follows: "Who warms me? Who loves me still? Give me ardent fingers. Give me heartening charcoal warmers. Prone, outstretched, trembling, like one whose half-dead and cold feet are warmed by another, and shaken, by unfamiliar fevers, shivering with sharpened, icy-cold frost arrows, chased by you, my imagination, ineffable, hidden, terrifying. You, the huntsman behind the cloud banks, now struck by lightning from you, you, mocking eye that watches me in the darkness. Thus I lie, bend myself, twist myself, convulsed with eternal torment, and struck by you, the cruelest huntsman, you, the unfamiliar, God. Strike deeper, strike once more, pierce and rend my heart. What is the meaning of this torture with dull, indented arrows? Why do you look here, not weary of human pain, with mischief-loving, godly glances? Not murder, but torture you seek. Why torture me, you, the mischief-loving, unfamiliar God? Ha, ha! You approach in the gloomy hour of midnight. What do you want? Speak! You crowd me, press, ha! Now far too closely. You hear me breathing, you overhear my heart, you ever-jealous one. Jealous of what? Off, off! Why the ladder? Do you want to get in, to climb into the heart, to penetrate my most private thoughts? Shameless one, you unknown one, thief! What are you seeking with your stealing? What are you seeking with your eavesdropping? What are you seeking with your torturing? You torturer, you hangman God! Or should I, like the mastiffs, roll before you, and cringe, enraptured, frenzied, wag my tail friendly? In vain, goad further, cruelest goader. I am no dog, just your prey, cruelest huntsman, your proudest captive, you, the robber behind the cloud banks. Speak at last, you lightning-veiled one, you unknown one. Speak! What do you want, highway ambusher, from me? What do you want, unfamiliar? God? What? Ransom gold? How much ransom gold? Ask for much, that's what my pride demands. And be brief, that's what my other pride demands. Ha, ha, me. Do you want? Me? Entire? Ha, ha. And are you torturing me, you fool, torturing my pride to death? Give me love, who still warms me, who still loves me. Give me ardent fingers, give me heart-warming coal-burners, give me the loneliest one, the ice, sevenfold frozen ice, which makes one thirst for enemies. Give, yield to me, cruelest foe, yourself. Away, he surely fled, my last only companion, my greatest foe, the unfamiliar one, my hangman God. No, come back, with all your great torments. To me, the loneliest one. Oh, come back. All my hot tears trickle their way to you, and all my final heartfelt fervor upwards to you. Oh, come back, my unfamiliar God, my pain, my final bliss. Zarathustra encounters the magician, a test of deception and truth. Here, Zarathustra couldn't restrain himself any longer. He took his staff and struck the wailing man with all his might. "Stop this!" he cried angrily with laughter. "Stop this, you stage player, you false coiner, you liar from the very heart. I know you well. I will soon make your legs warm, you evil magician. I know how to make it hot for someone like you." "Leave off," said the old man, springing up from the ground. "Don't strike me again, Zarathustra. I did it only for amusement. That kind of thing belongs to my art. I wanted to test you when I gave this performance, and indeed, you detected me well, but you too have given me a significant test. You are hard, wise Zarathustra. You strike hard with your truths, and your cudgel forces from me this truth." "Don't flatter yourself," replied Zarathustra, still excited and frowning. "You are a deceiver from the heart. You are false. Why do you speak of truth? You peacock among peacocks, you sea of vanity. What did you represent before me, you evil magician? Whom was I supposed to believe in when you wailed like that?" "The penitent in spirit," said the old man. "That's who I represented. You yourself coined that expression, the poet and magician who finally turns his spirit against himself, the transformed one who freezes to death due to his bad science and conscience. And admit it, it took a long time, O Zarathustra, before you saw through my trick and lie. You believed in my distress when you held my head with both your hands. I heard you lament, 'We have loved him too little, loved him too little.' Because I deceived you to that extent, my wickedness rejoiced in me." "You may have deceived others more subtly than me," said Zarathustra sternly. "I don't guard against deceivers. I have to be without precaution. That's my destiny. But you must deceive. I know you that much. You must always be ambiguous, three-faced, four-faced, and five-faced. Even what you've just confessed is neither true enough nor false enough for me, you bad false coiner. How could you do otherwise? You would whitewash your own malady if you appeared naked before your physician. That's how you whitewashed your lie before me when you said, 'I did it only for amusement.' There was seriousness in it too. You are something of a penitent in spirit. I understand you well. You have become the enchanter of the whole world, but for yourself, you have no lie or artifice left. You are disenchanted to yourself. Disgust has become your only truth. No word in you is any longer genuine, but your mouth is, which is to say, the disgust that clings to your mouth. "Who are you at all?" cried the old magician defiantly. "Who dares to speak to me like this, the greatest man now living?" A green flash shot from his eye at Zarathustra, but immediately after he changed and said sadly, "O Zarathustra, I am weary of it all. I am disgusted with my arts. I am not great. Why should I pretend otherwise? But you know it well. I sought greatness. I wanted to appear as a great man and convinced many, but the lie was beyond my power. I collapse under it. O Zarathustra, everything in me is a lie, but my collapse is genuine." "It honors you," said Zarathustra gloomily, looking down with a sidelong glance. "It honors you that you sought greatness, but it betrays you as well. You are not great. You bad old magician, that is the best and most honest thing about you, that you have grown weary of yourself and admitted it. I am not great. That is what I honor in you, as a penitent in spirit, even if only for a moment. In that one moment, you were genuine. But tell me, what are you seeking here in my forests and mountains, and if you have placed yourself in my path, what proof of me do you seek?" Thus spoke Zarathustra, and his eyes sparkled. But the old magician remained silent for a while and then said, "Did I test you? I only seek. O Zarathustra, I seek a genuine one, a righteous one, a simple one, an unequivocal one, a man of perfect honesty, a vessel of wisdom, a saint of knowledge, a great man. Don't you know it, O Zarathustra? I seek Zarathustra." And here there arose a long silence between them. Zarathustra, however, became deeply absorbed in thought and closed his eyes. But then he returned to the situation, grasped the magician's hand, and said politely and diplomatically, "Well, the path leads up there. That is Zarathustra's cave. You may seek the one you desire within it, and consult with my animals, my eagle and my serpent. They will help you in your search. My cave is spacious. However, I myself have not yet seen a great man. The truly great is currently invisible to the sharpest eye. It is the era of the populace. I have encountered many who puffed themselves up, and the people cried, 'Behold a great man!' But what use are all these bellows? The wind eventually escapes. The frog that inflates itself for too long will burst in the end, and the wind will come out. I call it good sport to puncture a swollen belly. Listen to that, you boys. Our today belongs to the populace. Who still knows what is great and what is small? Who can successfully seek greatness today? Only a fool. It works with fools. Are you searching for great men, you strange fool? Who taught that to you? Is today the right time for it? Oh, you misguided seeker, why do you tempt me?" Thus spoke Zarathustra, comforted in his heart, and went on his way laughing. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, chapter 65, The Magician, Nietzsche presents a dramatic exchange between Zarathustra and the magician that dives deep into themes of self-deception, vanity, loneliness, and the struggle for authenticity. The magician, embodying a kind of tortured artist figure, performs an elaborate display of suffering and emotional turmoil, lamenting his isolation and pleading for warmth and love. His theatrics hint at a soul that has become disenchanted with itself, a person who sought greatness through illusion but is haunted by a profound emptiness. The magician's performance reveals a man wrestling with inner contradictions. He longs for connection, but hides behind his art and deception, confessing his need for admiration while simultaneously mocking those he fools. His lament becomes a cry to an unfamiliar god, a symbol of the intangible and unreachable ideals he once pursued. His agony is a form of self-torment, a punishment for his inability to live in full truth, which he compensates for with his art, trickery, and self-aggrandizing facade. Zarathustra, on the other hand, serves as a figure of authenticity and piercing insight. He sees through the magician's act and reacts with irritation, striking him to break the illusion and demanding honesty. Zarathustra's anger is not just at the deception, but at the magician's unwillingness to confront his own lack of truth directly. By calling him a peacock and sea of vanity, Zarathustra exposes the magician's deep-seated need for validation and his failure to live authentically. For Zarathustra, the magician's attempt to represent the penitent in spirit is hollow, because it is tinged with self-flattery rather than true repentance. The magician, after being called out, admits that he is weary of his own arts and that he feels like a lie. This moment of vulnerability is perhaps his most honest, as he concedes his own inability to reach true greatness and acknowledges the limitations of his self-deception. Zarathustra respects this fleeting honesty, suggesting that only in admitting his own smallness does the magician come close to truth. Yet Zarathustra still perceives the magician's self-awareness as incomplete, noting that even his confession is neither fully true nor fully false. This interaction ultimately critiques those who seek greatness through performance and self-aggrandizement, revealing that true greatness, for Nietzsche, cannot be attained through deception or self-deceit. The magician's search for Zarathustra symbolizes a yearning for a model of unfeigned truth and strength, something he cannot find within himself. Zarathustra's laughter as he leaves underscores the futility of the magician's quest for validation through illusion and highlights Nietzsche's disdain for the false coiners of the world. In the end, the magician remains trapped in his own disillusionment, illustrating Nietzsche's belief that true strength and fulfillment arise only from an honest confrontation with oneself, stripped of all artifice. Chapter 66. Out of Service. Not long after Zarathustra had freed himself from the magician, he encountered another person sitting beside the path. This man was tall, black, with a haggard, pale countenance, and his presence troubled Zarathustra greatly. In his heart, Zarathustra wondered why such a person had entered his domain and what he, resembling a priest, sought there. He questioned why he had just escaped from one magician and now encountered another, a somber wonder-worker, or perhaps a world maligner by divine grace. Zarathustra's inner turmoil and impatience with the situation led him to curse the circumstances and even mention the devil, who always seemed to arrive too late. However, despite his initial intention to avoid the black man, fate had other plans. The black man had already noticed Zarathustra and approached him eagerly, seeking help from the traveler. The black man explained that he was a seeker, an old man who had strayed into unfamiliar and wild territory, far from civilization. He mentioned hearing the howling of wild beasts and lamented that the one who could have offered him protection was no longer there. He was searching for a pious man, a saint, an anchorite who lived alone in the forest and remained oblivious to worldly knowledge. He explained that he had been seeking the most pious man who did not believe in God, and that was why he sought Zarathustra. Zarathustra, intrigued, asked what the whole world now knew, and the old man sorrowfully confirmed that the old God, in whom the world once believed, no longer lived. He explained that he had served this old God until the end, and had come to the mountains to find solace in pious recollections and divine services after the God's passing. He claimed to be the last pope, seeking a festival of divine memories and services, only to find the saint he sought was no longer there. When Zarathustra asked how the saint had died, the old pope avoided the question and looked away with a painful and gloomy expression. This prompted Zarathustra to suggest that perhaps sympathy for humanity had overwhelmed the saint, leading to his death upon witnessing the crucifixion of a man. The old pope did not respond directly, but maintained a solemn silence. Zarathustra concluded that the saint had passed away, which saddened him. He described his preference for those who spoke honestly and radiated brightness. However, he also acknowledged that the saint had an equivocal nature and his teachings were not always clear. Zarathustra criticized the saint's lack of clarity and questioned why he had not spoken more directly to avoid misunderstandings. He also remarked on the saint's changing nature over time, from wrathful to compassionate, and how he eventually died due to overwhelming pity. The old pope, who had been blind in one eye, shared that he had served the saint faithfully and knew more about him than Zarathustra might have imagined. He described the saint as a hidden god, full of secrecy, and suggested that there was even adultery involved in his divine affairs. He emphasized that the saint's love extended to humanity regardless of reward or requital. He also mentioned that the saint had a transformational journey, from being harsh and revengeful in his youth to becoming a compassionate, elderly figure in the end. The old pope believed that the saint's overwhelming pity had led to his death. Zarathustra, in response, acknowledged the old pope's piety, but argued that the saint had an equivocal nature, resembling the priestly type. He believed that the saint's lack of clarity in his teachings had caused misunderstandings. Zarathustra also asserted that the saint had an inconsistent character, and he praised those who loved unconditionally, without expecting reward or requital. The old pope observed that Zarathustra, despite claiming to be ungodly, had been converted by some inner god to his ungodliness, suggesting that Zarathustra's piety was hidden within his unbelief. He believed that Zarathustra's great honesty might lead him beyond conventional notions of good and evil. He requested to be Zarathustra's guest for a single night, praising the blessing potential in Zarathustra's eyes, hands, and mouth, and suggesting that Zarathustra was more pious than he realized. Zarathustra agreed to host the old pope and offered to guide him to his cave. He acknowledged that his cave provided a haven, but he also expressed his desire to help those who were suffering. Zarathustra was concerned about the old pope's melancholy and was determined to offer support. However, the old pope, recognizing Zarathustra's profound unbelief, remarked on Zarathustra's evolving beliefs and suggested that Zarathustra might lead himself beyond traditional notions of piety and morality. In the end, Zarathustra accepted the old pope's request to be his guest, and they set out for Zarathustra's cave, continuing their philosophical and spiritual discussions along the way. Thus spoke Zarathustra. In Chapter 66, Out of Service, Zarathustra encounters a somber figure, the last pope, mourning the death of God and his own obsolescence. This poignant meeting is one of irony and introspection, as the pope, a symbol of traditional faith, finds himself seeking solace from Zarathustra, the man who denies God's existence. Their conversation reveals the depth of the pope's grief and the emptiness left by his God's absence, a deity he served to the very end. Zarathustra, at first repelled by the figure, sees him as a relic of beliefs long abandoned. Yet, the pope's sorrow and the story of God's evolution from wrathful judge to compassionate saint stir something within Zarathustra. He criticizes the saint's equivocal nature, suggesting his teachings were muddled and inconsistent, perhaps contributing to his demise. Zarathustra admires those who love unconditionally, yet he's skeptical of the saint's approach to humanity, implying it lacked the clarity needed for true enlightenment. Ultimately, this interaction symbolizes a transition. The old faith dies with the pope, while Zarathustra embodies a new, uncertain path forward. The pope, paradoxically, suggests that Zarathustra's very unbelief hints at a hidden piety, implying that true spirituality might lie beyond traditional boundaries. Together, they walk towards Zarathustra's cave, a gesture of acceptance and mutual respect, despite their conflicting beliefs. This chapter explores the pain of moving beyond outdated faith and the challenge of forging new meaning in its absence. Chapter 67, The Ugliest Man. And Zarathustra continued to walk through mountains and forests, searching for the distressed sufferer and crier, but he remained elusive. As he journeyed, he found himself reflecting on the strange encounters he had experienced that day. "What good things this day has given me," he mused, "as compensation for its inauspicious beginning. What peculiar interlocutors I have encountered. I will chew on their words like fine corn, savoring them slowly until they flow into my soul like milk." But as Zarathustra followed the path around a rocky bend, the landscape changed dramatically. He entered a desolate realm characterized by black and red cliffs, devoid of grass, trees, or the songs of birds. This valley was so forbidding that all animals, including predators, avoided it. It was known as serpent death because a species of repulsive, thick green serpents came here to die when they grew old. As Zarathustra walked through this valley, dark memories surfaced, and a heavy melancholy settled over him. He moved more slowly, nearly coming to a halt. Suddenly, he spotted something sitting by the wayside, a shape resembling a man, but also something otherworldly. A feeling of great shame overcame him for gazing upon such a creature. Blushing deeply, he averted his gaze and lifted his foot to depart from this ill-fated place. Then, the barren wilderness seemed to come to life. From the ground, a noise arose, gurgling and rattling, much like water bubbling through clogged pipes. Gradually, this cacophony transformed into human voices and speech, addressing Zarathustra. Zarathustra, Zarathustra, solve my riddle. Tell me, what is the revenge on the witness? I beckon you back. Here is smooth ice. Be careful not to break your pride on it. You think yourself wise, proud Zarathustra. Solve the riddle, you hard nutcracker, the riddle that I am. Tell me, who am I? Upon hearing these words, what do you think happened in Zarathustra's soul? Pity overcame him, and he suddenly sank down, much like a sturdy oak succumbing to the blows of numerous woodcutters, causing great surprise even to those who intended to cut it down. But Zarathustra quickly rose from the ground, his countenance now stern. I know you well, he declared boldly. You are the murderer of God. Let me go. You could not tolerate the one who saw you, the one who truly saw through you, you ugliest of men. You sought revenge against this witness. Zarathustra spoke with unwavering resolve, ready to continue his journey. However, the enigmatic figure grabbed a corner of his garment and struggled to find words. Finally, he spoke again. Stay, he implored. Do not pass by. I have discerned which axe struck you to the ground. Hail to you, O Zarathustra, for standing on your feet once more. You have understood, I know it well, how the man feels who killed him. The murderer of God. Stay, sit down here beside me. It is not in vain. To whom else would I go but to you? Stay, sit down, but do not look at me. Honor my ugliness in this way. They persecute me, and now you are my last refuge. I would mock their hatred and be proud and cheerful if they persecuted me in vain. Hasn't all success so far been with those who were well persecuted? And he who persecutes well quickly learns to be obsequious when he is put behind. But it's their pity that I flee from, and I flee to you. O Zarathustra, protect me, you, my last refuge, the only one who understood me. You have understood how the man feels who killed him. Stay, and if you must go, you impatient one, do not go the way I came. That way is bad. Are you angry with me because I've already used language for too long, because I've given you advice? But know that it's I, the ugliest man, who also have the largest, heaviest feet. Where I have gone, the way is bad. I tread all paths to death and destruction. But that you passed me by in silence, that you blushed, I saw it well. That's how I recognized you as Zarathustra. Everyone else would have thrown their arms, their pity, at me in look and speech. But I am not beggarly enough for that. That's what you understood. For I am too rich in what is great, frightful, ugliest, most unspeakable. Your shame, O Zarathustra, honored me. I had a hard time escaping from the crowd of the pitiful, so that I could find the only one who currently teaches that pity is intrusive, yourself, O Zarathustra. Whether it's the pity of a god or the pity of humans, it is offensive to modesty, and unwillingness to help may be nobler than the virtue that rushes to do so. That, however, namely pity, is considered virtue itself nowadays by all petty people. They have no reverence for great misfortune, great ugliness, great failure. I look beyond all of them as a dog looks over the backs of a flock of sheep. They are petty, well-behaved, well-intentioned, grey people. As the heron looks contemptuously at shallow pools, with its head bent backward, so do I look at the crowd of grey little waves and desires and souls. I have been acknowledging them as right for too long, those petty people. So we have finally given them power as well, and now they teach that good is only what petty people call good. And truth is now what the preacher, who himself emerged from them, that peculiar saint and advocate of the petty people, spoke when he testified about himself, I am the truth. That immodest one has greatly inflated the petty people, he who taught no small error when he said, I am the truth. Has an immodest one ever been answered more courteously? But you, O Zarathustra, passed him by and said, No, no, thrice no. You warned against his error. You were the first to do so, against pity, not everyone, not no one, but yourself and your type. You are ashamed of the shame of the great sufferer, and truly when you say, from pity there comes a heavy cloud, beware, O men. When you teach, all creators are hard, all great love is beyond their pity. O Zarathustra, how well versed you seem to me in weather signs, but beware also of your own pity. For many are on their way to you, many who suffer, doubt, despair, drown, freeze. I warn you also against myself. You have read my best, my worst riddle, myself, and what I have done. I know the axe that fells you. But he had to die. He looked with eyes that beheld everything. He saw the depths and dregs of men, all their hidden ignominy and ugliness. His pity knew no modesty. He crept into my dirtiest corners. This most prying, over-intrusive, over-pitiful one had to die. He ever beheld me. On such a witness, I would have revenge, or else I would not live myself. The God who saw everything, and also man, that God had to die, man cannot bear it that such a witness should live. Thus spoke the ugliest man. Zarathustra, however, got up and prepared to continue his journey, for he felt frozen to the very bowels. "You nondescript," he said, "you warned me against your path. As thanks for it, I praise mine to you. Behold, up there is the cave of Zarathustra. My cave is large and deep, and has many corners. There, he who is most hidden finds his hiding place, and close beside it there are 100 lurking places and by-places for creeping, fluttering, and hopping creatures. You outcast, who has cast himself out, you will not live among men and their pity. Well then, do as I do. Thus you will also learn from me, only the doer learns, and talk first and foremost to my animals, the proudest animal and the wisest animal. They might well be the right counselors for both of us." Thus spoke Zarathustra, and went on his way, even more thoughtfully and slowly than before, for he pondered many things, and hardly knew what to answer. "How poor indeed is man," he thought in his heart, "how ugly, how wheezy, how full of hidden shame. They tell me that man loves himself. Ah, how great must that self-love be! How much contempt is opposed to it! Even this man has loved himself as he has despised himself. A great lover I think he is, and a great despiser. I have not yet found anyone who more thoroughly despised himself. Even that is exaltation. Alas, was this perhaps the higher man whose cry I heard? I love the great despisers. Man is something that must be surpassed." In The Ugliest Man, Zarathustra's journey brings him face to face with an intense embodiment of self-loathing, shame, and what Nietzsche sees as humanity's struggle with confronting truth without pity. The Ugliest Man, who self-identifies as the murderer of God, is not just a literal character, but a symbol of humanity's deepest anguish and rejection of divinity as a form of inner confrontation. Having killed the witness, the God who sees everything, including humanity's flaws and hidden shame, he has freed himself from the gaze that bears witness to his inner ugliness. Yet, this freedom comes at a price, leaving him to wrestle with his own self-loathing and existential isolation. Zarathustra's initial reaction is to turn away, a move that respects the ugliest man's wish to avoid pity. This response reflects Nietzsche's critique of pity as a virtue that can often degrade rather than uplift. Instead, true respect comes from allowing someone to retain their dignity without intrusive compassion. Unlike others, Zarathustra's reluctance to extend pity honors the ugliest man's suffering in a way that aligns with his philosophy of the Übermensch, who seeks strength through embracing pain and transcendence rather than leaning on the support of pity. The ugliest man, shunned and despised by society, resents the petty masses who, in their own self-righteousness, cling to pity as a virtue. He sees pity as an insidious force that tries to make itself superior under the guise of virtue, which to him is intrusive and immodest. For Nietzsche, pity for another's suffering often reveals a weakness in those who extend it, a failure to recognize the dignity in another's struggle and to appreciate suffering as a catalyst for growth and self-overcoming. In a society that enshrines pity as a primary virtue, the ugliest man becomes an outcast, bearing the full weight of this unpitied, unredeemed existence. As the ugliest man pleads with Zarathustra to remain with him and not to look upon him with pity, he reveals his need to escape the suffocating compassion of others. His self-loathing and shame are deepened by the gaze of others, who, he feels, will never understand the value he finds in his own ugliness and suffering. Zarathustra, meanwhile, grapples with an inner conflict. He senses the nobility in rejecting pity, yet feels a pang of empathy toward this broken figure who struggles with profound self-despair. Through this encounter, Nietzsche's message resonates with the themes of self-overcoming, embracing suffering, and transcending the conventional virtues that keep people complacent. The ugliest man becomes a metaphor for the last man Nietzsche warns against, one who is trapped within societal norms and expectations, unable to reach beyond to create new values. By facing the ugliest man, Zarathustra confronts the darker parts of humanity that must be embraced and transcended, showing that to rise above, one must first delve into the depths of despair, shame, and self-knowledge. This chapter reflects Nietzsche's belief that man must transcend both his physical and spiritual limitations, even if this process reveals the painful truth of humanity's inner ugliness. In the ugliest man's struggle, Zarathustra sees a path to greatness, not through denial or pity, but through the courage to see humanity in its raw, unadorned form. This interaction pushes Zarathustra further along his journey, illuminating the harsh yet liberating idea that man must face his flaws and ugliness head-on if he hopes to overcome and evolve. Chapter 68. The Voluntary Beggar. When Zarathustra had left the ugliest man, he felt chilled and lonely. Coldness and loneliness enveloped his spirit, and even his limbs grew colder. But as he continued to wander, sometimes through green meadows, and at other times over rocky terrain, where a restless brook might have once flowed, he suddenly felt warmer and more invigorated. "What has happened to me?" he wondered. "Something warm and alive is stirring within me. It must be nearby. I am no longer so alone. Unconscious companions and brothers surround me, and their warm breath touches my soul." As he looked around for the source of this warmth and companionship, he saw a group of cows gathered on a hill. Their proximity and the scent of the animals warmed his heart. These cows appeared to be listening intently to someone speaking, paying no attention to Zarathustra as he approached. As he got closer, he realized that a human voice was speaking among the cows, and all of them had turned their heads toward the speaker. Zarathustra hurried over and gently moved the cows aside, fearing that someone might be in need of help, and the cows' natural kindness wouldn't suffice. To his surprise, he found a man sitting on the ground, calmly and kindly addressing the cows. It seemed as though he was preaching to them, and his eyes radiated kindness. "Why are you here?" Zarathustra asked in astonishment. "Why am I here?" the man replied. "The same reason you are, you troublemaker, to seek happiness on earth. To that end, I'm trying to learn from these cows. I've been talking to them for half the morning, and they were just about to give me their answer. Why are you disturbing them? Unless we become like cows and learn the art of rumination, we won't enter the kingdom of heaven. We should learn one thing from them: rumination. Even if a man were to gain the whole world but fail to learn the art of rumination, what would it profit him? He would not be rid of his great affliction, which is now called disgust. Who among us does not carry in his heart, mouth, and eyes the burden of disgust? You too. But look at these cows." Thus spoke the preacher on the mount, his gaze previously filled with love for the cows, now turned toward Zarathustra with a different expression. "Who is this I'm talking to?" he exclaimed in fear, rising from the ground. "This is the man without disgust. This is Zarathustra himself, the conqueror of great disgust. This is the eye, this is the mouth, this is the heart of Zarathustra himself." And whilst the preacher on the mount spoke, he kissed Zarathustra's hands with overflowing eyes, behaving as if an unexpected precious gift had fallen from heaven. The cows, however, watched all of this in wonder. "Do not speak of me, you strange and amiable one," said Zarathustra, restraining his affection. "Speak first of yourself. Are you not the voluntary beggar who once cast away great riches? Are you not the one who was ashamed of his wealth and the wealthy, and fled to the poorest to share his abundance and his heart? But they did not receive you." "But they did not receive me," said the voluntary beggar. "You know it indeed, so I went to the animals and to these cows." "Then you learned," interrupted Zarathustra, "how much harder it is to give properly than to take properly, and that bestowing well is an art, the final, subtlest master art of kindness." "Especially in these times," replied the voluntary beggar, "especially now, when everything lowly has become rebellious, exclusive, and haughty in its manner, like the common people. For the hour has come, you know it well, for the great evil long slow mob and slave insurrection. It spreads and extends. Now it provokes the lower classes, all benevolence and petty giving, and the overly rich should be cautious. Whoever now overflows like bulging bottles from narrow necks, of such bottles one willingly breaks the necks. Wanton greed, bitter envy, vindictive revenge, and popular pride, all of these things caught my eye. It is no longer true that the poor are blessed. The kingdom of heaven, however, is with the cows." "Why is it not with the rich?" asked Zarathustra, tempting him, while he held back the cows that were sniffing curiously at the peaceful man. "Why do you tempt me?" answered the other. "You know better than I do. What drove me to the poorest, O Zarathustra? Was it not my disgust for the rich? For the criminals of wealth, with cold eyes and corrupt thoughts, who profit from all sorts of filth? For this rabble that stinks to high heaven, for this gilded, corrupted populace whose fathers were pickpockets, crows, or rag-pickers, with compliant, lewd, and forgetful wives? For they are not much different from harlots, above the populace, below the populace. What does poor and rich mean today? I have unlearned that distinction. I fled further and further, until I came to these cows." So spoke the peaceful one, panting and sweating from his words, and the cows wondered once more. Meanwhile, Zarathustra kept smiling as he looked into the man's face, shaking his head silently. "You are being too hard on yourself, preacher on the mount, with such severe words," he said, "for neither your mouth nor your eyes were given to you for such severity, nor, I think, was your stomach. All this rage, hatred, and foaming over is repugnant to it. Your stomach craves milder things. You are not a butcher." "You seem more like a plant-eater and a root-man to me," Zarathustra continued. "Perhaps you grind corn, and without a doubt, you are averse to fleshly pleasures, and you love honey." "You have divined me well," replied the voluntary beggar, his heart lightened. "I love honey, and I do grind corn. I have sought out what tastes sweet and gives a pure breath. I have also found what requires a long time, a day's work, and mouth's work, suitable for gentle idlers and sluggards. The cows have indeed taken it to the farthest extent. They have invented rumination and basking in the sun. They also abstain from all heavy thoughts that might weigh down the heart." "Well," said Zarathustra, "you should also meet my animals, my eagle and my serpent. There are no others like them on earth today. Look, this path leads to my cave. Be my guest tonight, and talk to my animals about the happiness of animals until I return. But now, a cry of distress calls me away from you. If you find new honey with me, ice-cold golden comb honey, eat it. But for now, bid farewell to your cows, you strange and amiable one, although it may be hard for you. They are your warmest friends and teachers." "Except for one, whom I hold dearer," replied the voluntary beggar. "You yourself, O Zarathustra, are good, and even better than a cow." "Away, away with you, you evil flatterer," Zarathustra exclaimed playfully. "Why do you spoil me with such praise and honeyed flattery? Away from me," he repeated, playfully tossing his stick at the affectionate beggar, who quickly ran off. In The Voluntary Beggar, Nietzsche uses Zarathustra's encounter with a man who has chosen to live among cows as a reflection on the search for simplicity and purity amid a corrupt world. This voluntary beggar, once wealthy, abandoned his riches to live simply, feeling disgusted by humanity's obsession with material wealth and its resulting greed, envy, and moral decay. He seeks solace and wisdom among the cows, creatures of quiet simplicity who spend their days ruminating, a process he sees as an antidote to the emotional afflictions that plague humanity. The beggar's focus on rumination serves as a metaphor for deep contemplation and inner peace, contrasting the ceaseless ambition and agitation he associates with human society. He believes that humans would benefit from adopting the cow's way of life, finding a state of peace beyond the burden of disgust and the endless desires that wealth and status bring. This simplicity, for the beggar, represents a kind of paradise, free from the complexities of human society and focused instead on basic, pure existence. Zarathustra, however, sees the voluntary beggar's choice differently. He recognizes that while rejecting wealth and materialism might initially seem virtuous, it can also be a passive escape from the challenges of human life rather than a genuine pursuit of wisdom. Zarathustra suggests that this act of renunciation does not free the beggar from his disgust, but rather avoids confronting it. He questions the beggar's belief that retreating from humanity to live among animals provides true liberation. For Zarathustra, the beggar's search for simplicity is not the higher wisdom he seeks. It is, in a sense, a retreat from the very challenges that make human life meaningful and transformative. Moreover, Zarathustra's compassion for the beggar hints at Nietzsche's belief in the power of self-overcoming. Rather than discarding the complexities of human society in favor of a simpler existence, Nietzsche suggests that true growth comes from engaging with life's contradictions and overcoming personal disgust, rather than succumbing to it. Zarathustra's challenge to the beggar implies that while simplicity and detachment can bring temporary solace, real fulfillment requires grappling with human experience in all its forms, even those that repulse us. It's an idea central to Nietzsche's philosophy, that enlightenment isn't a matter of escaping life, but of confronting and transforming the most difficult aspects of it. Ultimately, the voluntary beggar illustrates the tension between withdrawal from the human world and engagement with its messy realities. The beggar's longing for simplicity mirrors a common desire for purity and peace, but Nietzsche, through Zarathustra, points to a different path. Rather than looking for paradise in escape, we must create it through engagement, acceptance, and growth. This chapter, like much of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, underscores Nietzsche's call for embracing the yes to life, not by hiding from its difficulties, but by transcending them through strength, wisdom, and transformation. Chapter 69. The Shadow. As Zarathustra continued on his way, the voluntary beggar disappeared, and Zarathustra found himself alone. However, it wasn't long before he heard a new voice calling out behind him, "Stay, Zarathustra, wait for me. It is I, indeed, O Zarathustra, myself, your shadow." But Zarathustra didn't wait. He felt a sudden irritation due to the crowd and the congestion in his mountains. "Where has my solitude gone?" he wondered. "It is becoming too much for me. These mountains are swarming. My kingdom is no longer of this world. I need new mountains. My shadow calls me. What does my shadow matter? Let it follow me. I will run away from it." Zarathustra ran, and the one behind him followed, so that there were now 3 runners in a row. First, the voluntary beggar, then Zarathustra, and finally his shadow. But soon, Zarathustra realized the folly of his irritation and shook off his annoyance. "What?" he said to himself. "Have not the most ludicrous things always happened to us old anchorites and saints? My foolishness has grown in the mountains. Now I hear the footsteps of 6 old fools following each other. But does Zarathustra need to be afraid of his shadow? It seems to have longer legs than mine." Zarathustra laughed at his own thoughts, stood still, and turned around quickly. He almost knocked his shadow and follower to the ground because they had been following so closely. The follower appeared slender, swarthy, hollow, and worn out. "Who are you?" Zarathustra asked vehemently. "What are you doing here? And why do you call yourself my shadow? I don't find you pleasing." "Forgive me," replied the shadow. "It is indeed I, and if I don't please you, O Zarathustra, I admire your good taste. I am a wanderer who has walked a long path, always on the move, but without a goal, and without a home. I am almost like the eternally wandering Jew, except that I am not eternal and not a Jew." "What? Must I always be on the move, tossed by every wind, unsettled and driven about? O earth, you have become too round for me. I have sat on every surface like tired dust, fallen asleep on mirrors and window panes, and everything takes from me, nothing gives. I am becoming thin, almost like a shadow. But after you, O Zarathustra, I fled and followed the longest. Although I hid from you, I was still your best shadow. Wherever you sat, I sat too. I have traveled with you through the remotest, coldest worlds, like a phantom haunting winter roofs and snows. I have gone beyond every crime, pursued the most dangerous desires, and unlearned belief in words, values, and great names. Too much has become clear to me, and now it no longer concerns me. Nothing that I love lives on. How can I still love myself? To live as I desire, or not to live at all, that is my wish, and the wish of the holiest. But alas, do I still have desires? Do I still have a goal, a haven to which my sails are set, a favorable wind? Ah, only he who knows where he is sailing knows what wind is good for him. What is left for me now? A weary and whimsical heart, an unstable will, fluttering wings and a broken backbone. Seeking my home has become a homesickness that consumes me. Where is my home? I ask and seek, but I haven't found it. O eternal everywhere, O eternal nowhere, O eternal in vain. Zarathustra listened to the shadow's words, and his countenance became saddened. "You are my shadow," he said sadly. "Your danger is not small, free spirit and wanderer," Zarathustra continued. "You've had a bad day, And you must be careful not to have an even worse evening. Even captured criminals sleep peacefully. They enjoy their new security. Beware lest you become a prisoner of a narrow faith, a hard and rigid delusion. Now everything that is narrow and fixed tempts and seduces you. You've lost your goal, and how will you forego and forget that loss? You are a poor rover and rambler, a tired butterfly. Would you like to rest and find a home tonight? Then come to my cave. The path leads there. But for now, I will run away from you again. A shadow seems to be hanging over me. I will run alone so that it may become bright around me once more. I must be merry on my own legs for a long time still. But in the evening, there will be dancing with me. Thus spoke Zarathustra. In The Shadow, Nietzsche portrays Zarathustra's encounter with an unwelcome aspect of himself, represented by his shadow, a symbol of his inner doubts, loneliness, and weariness, with constant wandering. This shadow, embodying Zarathustra's disillusionment, echoes the existential fatigue of a life detached from traditional values and comforts. Having abandoned societal beliefs, the shadow has become aimless, drifting without purpose or home. Zarathustra is both irritated and saddened by the shadow's plight, recognizing the spiritual exhaustion that arises when one has cast aside all familiar moorings, yet has nothing to replace them. Zarathustra's response to his shadow is both compassionate and wary. He offers it temporary refuge, but warns of the dangers of falling into narrow, rigid beliefs as a substitute for genuine purpose. This tension between the desire for belonging and the need for solitude highlights Nietzsche's view on the struggle for freedom. Zarathustra must confront his own doubts without allowing them to define him. By choosing to run alone for a time, Zarathustra demonstrates the necessity of facing inner turmoil to cultivate true self-reliance and strength. Nietzsche's exploration of Zarathustra's shadow serves as a meditation on the paradox of the free spirit, one who must confront inner darkness, yet resist the pull of despair. The promise of dancing in the evening hints at a future reconciliation, suggesting that joy and fulfillment lie beyond the struggle, as long as one maintains resilience on the path of self-overcoming. Chapter 70. Noontide. Zarathustra continued to run and found himself alone once more, enjoying his solitude and contemplating good things for hours. At noon, as the sun was directly overhead, he came across an old, gnarled tree entwined by a vine bearing yellow grapes. He felt a slight thirst and reached out to pluck some grapes, but was suddenly overcome by the desire to lie down beneath the tree in the perfect noonday stillness and sleep. As he laid down, his eyes remained open, and he pondered the world and his feelings. He thought of the perfection of the moment and how sleep had come over him like a delicate, gentle wind on calm seas. Sleep left his soul awake and his body light. He felt a caressing hand that seemed to persuade him and constrain him, making his soul stretch out. His strange soul stretched and stretched, growing weary. It had experienced too much goodness and had become burdened by a golden sadness. It felt as if a seventh-day evening had come upon it precisely at noon. It was like a ship that had sailed for too long and was now seeking the calmest cove, a place of rest. Zarathustra spoke to his heart, marveling at the world's perfection. He considered whether he had wandered too long among good and ripe things. His soul stretched out, grew long and weary, and the golden sadness weighed it down. He felt like a ship seeking the shore after a long voyage, a place where a spider could spin a thread to connect it to land. As he lay in the grass, his soul seemed to be resting near the earth, trusting and waiting, bound to it by the lightest threads. He marveled at the world's perfection, but he realized that he couldn't sing in this solemn moment. The world was perfect, and he needed to be silent. Zarathustra's soul contemplated the perfection of the moment, and he thought of the small things that brought the best happiness: a gentle breeze, a rustling sound, a breath, a glance, a lizard's rustling. The least and gentlest things made up the best happiness. As he pondered, he felt a sting in his heart. He questioned what had happened to him and whether time had slipped away. His heart was stung by a golden drop of happiness. He felt like he was falling into the well of eternity. Zarathustra wondered if the world had become perfect, round and ripe, and he desired the golden round ring that represented such perfection. He wanted to run after it, but he realized he had been sleeping for a long time, perhaps a half-eternity. He urged himself to wake up and stretched his old legs, but he fell asleep once more, and his soul defended itself, telling him to leave it alone. Zarathustra then heard a voice within him, and his soul argued for more sleep, claiming that the world had become perfect. Zarathustra resisted the temptation to sleep and woke up again, sitting upright. He looked up to the sky, feeling as if heaven were watching him. He questioned his soul and wondered when it would be time to drink the drop of dew that had fallen upon all earthly things. He contemplated when his soul would be reunited with the well of eternity. Suddenly, he became aware that the sun was still directly above him, and he realized he hadn't slept long at all. In Noontide, Zarathustra experiences a rare moment of pure stillness, a perfect noonday where time seems suspended and even his restless soul finds quiet. The chapter reflects a peak in his spiritual journey, a temporary yet profound balance where he can simply be rather than striving or philosophizing. His initial desire for grapes and the restful pull of the tree symbolize how even Zarathustra, a figure of unyielding ambition and contemplation, can find fulfillment in moments of simplicity and natural beauty. As he lies beneath the vine-draped tree, he feels an almost perfect contentment. His soul is awake, but burdened by a golden sadness, a poetic paradox that reveals how overwhelming beauty and goodness can carry a bittersweet weight, hinting at the impermanence of these moments. This is echoed by the image of a ship seeking a calm harbor after a long voyage, a powerful metaphor for Zarathustra's search for meaning and rest in a life of intense existential pursuits. He contemplates happiness in the smallest things, a breeze, a glance, a rustle, and feels deeply connected to the world around him. This chapter captures Nietzsche's ideal of eternal recurrence, the idea that life's value lies in embracing each moment so fully that one could bear reliving it endlessly. Yet, as Zarathustra awakens, he realizes that noontide, this perfection of the moment, is fleeting. Like all human states, his soul must eventually stir and move on, reflecting the essential tension between fleeting contentment and the eternal quest for meaning. Chapter 71. The Greeting. Late in the afternoon, Zarathustra returned to his cave after a long and fruitless search. However, as he stood just 20 paces away from his cave, an unexpected event occurred. He heard the cry of distress once again, and this time it came from his own cave. The cry was long, manifold, and peculiar, composed of many voices that, despite their distance, seemed to blend into a single voice. Zarathustra rushed towards his cave and was met with a surprising sight. Inside were all the individuals he had encountered throughout the day: the king on the right, the king on the left, the old magician, the pope, the voluntary beggar, the shadow, the intellectually conscientious one, the sorrowful soothsayer, and even the donkey. The ugliest man among them had crowned himself and adorned himself with purple girdles, attempting to disguise his appearance and appear handsome. In the center of this peculiar gathering stood Zarathustra's eagle, looking ruffled and disturbed, as it had been asked questions that challenged its pride. The wise serpent was coiled around its neck. Zarathustra gazed at this scene in astonishment, then proceeded to scrutinize each guest with polite curiosity, reading their souls and wondering anew. The assembled individuals had risen from their seats and awaited Zarathustra's words with reverence. Zarathustra, in turn, addressed them. Zarathustra addressed his guests, the despairing ones, acknowledging that he had heard their cry of distress, and he had now found the higher man he had been seeking all day, within his own cave. He humorously noted that he had allured the higher man with honey offerings and clever lures of his own happiness. However, he observed that the company before him seemed ill-suited for one another's company, as they made each other's hearts fretful. Zarathustra believed that a jovial buffoon, a dancer, or a wild romp could lighten their spirits, and he expressed his desire to make them laugh once more. He recognized that their presence had given him the power to encourage and uplift them. He then offered them his empire and dominion for the evening and night, assuring them that his animals would serve them and his cave would be their resting place. He promised to protect them from their wild beasts, providing them with security as the first offering. Zarathustra then extended his little finger to his guests, symbolizing the second offering. He playfully suggested that when they had his little finger, they could take his whole hand and heart with it. He warmly welcomed his guests to his abode. In response, the king on the right, speaking for the group, expressed their recognition of Zarathustra and their reverence for him. They were deeply moved by his humble yet proud demeanor. His presence had uplifted their spirits, and they saw his strong will as a magnificent and refreshing sight. They likened him to a tall, solitary pine tree, growing with strength and sturdiness, commanding the landscape and seeking dominion in the high places. The higher man was like a commander and a victor, and they marveled at his growth and presence. Zarathustra's guests were captivated by his character and the transformative effect of his presence, and they eagerly looked forward to their time together in his cave. The king on the right praised Zarathustra, stating that his presence had a transformative effect on the gloomy and unstable individuals, instilling them with a sense of purpose. Many had become curious about Zarathustra and longed to know more about him. Those who had heard his songs and honeyed words in the past were now asking if he still lived and whether they should seek him out. Solitude itself seemed fragile, and the longing for Zarathustra had drawn many to his mountain. The king on the right proclaimed that those who had come to Zarathustra's cave, no longer despairing, were a sign that even better individuals were on their way to him. They were the remnants of God among men, driven by great longing, loathing, and satiety, seeking hope once more. However, when the king on the right attempted to kiss Zarathustra's hand, the philosopher retreated, surprised and fearful. After a moment, he returned to his guests and spoke plainly, stating that he had not waited in the mountains for them. He acknowledged that they might be considered higher men, but argued that they were neither high enough nor strong enough for his purposes. He believed that they required indulgence, which he was unwilling to offer. Zarathustra explained that he did not treat his warriors indulgently, and that their weakness would spoil his victories. He questioned their ability to withstand his challenging path, and suggested that the sound of his drums might be overwhelming for some of them. Zarathustra continued to address his guests, explaining that they were not beautiful and well-born enough for him. He sought pure and smooth mirrors for his doctrines, and even his own likeness appeared distorted on their surfaces. He pointed out that they carried many burdens and recollections, harboring hidden flaws and concealed aspects. Despite their higher status, they were still marred by crookedness and imperfections. Zarathustra regarded them as bridges and steps for those who might ascend higher, not as the heirs of his heritage and name. He emphasized that he awaited others in the mountains, stronger and more resolute individuals who would be worthy of his teachings. He expressed his anticipation for the arrival of laughing lions, individuals who were built squarely in body and soul and who would represent his true children. Zarathustra longed for them and wanted to hear about his gardens, happy isles, and the new beautiful race he envisioned. He solicited his guests' love to speak to him about his children, as they were his greatest treasure. As Zarathustra spoke with passion and longing, his guests fell silent and were visibly moved. Only the old soothsayer made gestures, perhaps indicating that he understood the philosopher's words on a deeper level. In the greeting, Zarathustra returns to his cave, only to find it occupied by an unexpected assembly of individuals he'd encountered throughout his journey, each bearing their own sorrows and complexities. The scene is both startling and symbolic. Zarathustra, who has sought solitude and enlightenment, finds his refuge transformed into a sanctuary for the spiritually afflicted. Among the group are figures like the Pope, the old magician, and the king, all exemplifying various forms of despair and searching. Despite their flaws, they represent humanity's higher men, those who've glimpsed truth yet struggle to rise above their burdens. Upon seeing them, Zarathustra's reaction is mixed. He is amused by their eagerness, aware of their reverence, but also skeptical of their readiness. Though they are drawn to him, he perceives a profound dissonance. These seekers come with longings, but lack the strength to embrace his vision fully. Zarathustra humorously acknowledges that his cave has unexpectedly become a gathering place for the higher man he has long searched for, yet this higher status, he implies, is only a faint shadow of what he envisions for humanity. He suggests that the group might find respite in laughter or play, hinting at the need for spiritual lightness to counterbalance their heavy hearts. The guests, in turn, express admiration for Zarathustra, comparing him to a towering pine on a mountaintop, a solitary symbol of strength and authority. They see in him what they cannot embody, a force unyielding and resolute. Zarathustra's solitude, which he holds dear, has somehow made him a beacon. Yet, their praise is met with Zarathustra's pointed realism. He clarifies that he does not regard them as his heirs or equals. While they may be higher in a relative sense, they remain incomplete. They cling to memories, bear hidden faults, and are still ensnared by their pasts. To Zarathustra, true greatness isn't merely intellectual or moral, but requires an inner strength that radiates joy and power, unburdened by self-pity or hesitation. He envisions laughing lions, people who are unafraid of life's challenges, whose strength is matched by their willingness to confront the world with open arms and laughter. They are his children, his heirs, embodying an existence that transcends suffering and embraces existence fully, freely. Zarathustra's message is uncompromising. These men may be closer to his ideals than others, yet they are still bridges rather than destinations. They serve as steps towards something greater, yet they cannot ascend to the level Zarathustra demands. He loves them as humanity's higher men, but emphasizes they are not the ultimate embodiment of his vision. Zarathustra's sense of purpose drives him toward a future where individuals, his laughing lions, live in unison with his doctrines and joy, symbols of a new humanity. He longs for their arrival, individuals as clear and strong as a mirror, able to reflect his ideals without distortion. In the greeting, Nietzsche presents Zarathustra as a figure both welcoming and elusive, compassionate yet discerning. He welcomes humanity's seekers, but reminds them that true discipleship demands more than reverence. It requires a fearless embrace of life's challenges and an unwavering commitment to strength and joy. Thus, Zarathustra's greeting is a call not only to come, but to become something greater. The chapter challenges readers to consider the weight of spiritual responsibility and the courage it takes to truly evolve. Chapter 72. The Supper. The interruption by the soothsayer and his plea for food and wine brought a momentary pause to Zarathustra's discourse and prompted a practical turn in the conversation. It was evident that the guests, having journeyed long distances, were in need of sustenance beyond philosophical discussions. The soothsayer, with a sense of urgency, emphasized the vital importance of wine, claiming that it alone could provide immediate vigor and health. He pointed out that not everyone could thrive on water alone, an observation that resonated with some of the guests. In response to this, the king on the left chimed in, assuring Zarathustra that they had an ample supply of wine. However, the issue at hand was the lack of bread. This prompted Zarathustra to propose a practical solution. He suggested that they could slaughter 2 lambs and cook them with sage, a dish he personally favored. Additionally, he mentioned the availability of roots, fruits, nuts, and other provisions in the vicinity. Zarathustra extended an invitation to all present, including the kings, to actively participate in the preparation of this meal. Amid the discussions of food and drink, the voluntary beggar interjected with a playful comment. He humorously noted Zarathustra's apparent indulgence in such a feast, contrasting it with the philosopher's teachings on the virtue of "blessed be moderate poverty." Zarathustra responded with his characteristic wit, acknowledging the beggar's right to continue with his own customs if they brought him joy. He made it clear that he was a guide and mentor only to those who willingly embraced his philosophy. As the conversation continued, Zarathustra articulated the qualities he valued in those who chose to follow his path. He extolled the virtues of strength, joy in both battle and feast, readiness to face challenges, and overall physical and mental health. To him, the best of everything should be the privilege of his followers, and he believed they should seize it boldly if it was not freely offered. The king on the right, who had remained largely silent until this point, was taken aback by the wisdom and sensibility of Zarathustra's words. He marveled at the unusual combination of wisdom and practicality in a philosopher, a rare blend that he found intriguing. Even the donkey, known for its stubbornness, grudgingly assented to the king's remark. With the matter of sustenance addressed and the promise of a hearty meal ahead, The guests settled in for what would come to be known as the supper. However, the conversation had shifted from abstract philosophical musings to a focus on the concept of the higher man, a theme that would likely continue to shape their discussions throughout the meal and beyond. In the supper, Nietzsche shifts Zarathustra from the lofty heights of philosophy to a grounded, practical moment, reminding us that even the highest thinkers are still humans with simple needs. The soothsayer's plea for wine symbolizes a thirst for vitality, a reminder that the body and spirit are interwoven. Zarathustra's answer, organizing a meal from local offerings, underscores a theme. Wisdom is practical and must serve life itself. This scene also highlights Zarathustra's leadership philosophy. He expects his followers to be strong, vigorous, and capable of both battle and feast, embodying a robust, life-affirming existence. The voluntary beggar's jab at Zarathustra's supposed indulgence humorously reveals a balance in Zarathustra's teachings. While he values moderation, he celebrates strength and joy. Here, Nietzsche contrasts Zarathustra's practicality with the admiration of the king, surprised at a philosopher's embrace of life's tangible realities. The guests, united by food and conversation, are drawn toward a shared vision of the higher man. Thus, the supper is more than a meal. It's a convergence of strength, joy, and unity that moves them beyond mere survival, pointing towards a higher purpose. Chapter 73. The Higher Man. The Higher Man, a journey beyond the marketplace. When I first came among people, I committed a great error, the error of the ascetic man. I appeared in the marketplace. I spoke to all, but in truth, I spoke to none. In the evening, I found myself among rope dancers and corpses, and I felt like a corpse myself. But with the new morning, a new truth came to me. I learned to say, what do I care for the marketplace, the crowd, the noise of the masses, and their long ears? Higher men, learn this from me. On the marketplace, no one believes in higher men. If you choose to speak there, so be it. But the crowd merely blinks and says, we are all equal. You higher men, they say with their blink, there are no higher men. We are all equal. Man is man, and before God, we are all equal. But now, this God is dead. However, we will not be equal before the crowd. Higher men, away from the marketplace. Embracing the Superman, triumph after the death of God. By God, and now this God is dead, you, higher individuals, God was your greatest danger. Only since he has been laid to rest have you risen again. Now the great noonday approaches, and the higher man emerges as the master. Have you grasped the significance of these words, my brothers and sisters? Are you filled with fear? Does the abyss appear before you, and does the hound of hell howl nearby? Fear not, higher individuals. Now only the mountain of humanity's future lies ahead. God is no more. Now we aspire for the Superman to thrive. The Superman's ascendance, humanity surpassed. In today's world, the most cautious individuals ask, how can we sustain humanity? But Zarathustra, as the first and only one, asks, how can humanity be surpassed? The Superman is my foremost concern, the first and only thing that matters to me, not humanity, not our neighbors, not the poorest, not the most wretched, not even the best among us. Oh, my brothers, what I can admire in humanity is its capacity for overcoming and surpassing itself, and in you, too, I see much that inspires love and hope. The fact that you have shown disdain, you higher individuals, fills me with hope. For the great despisers are also the great reverers. Your moments of despair are worthy of honor, for you have not learned to bow down to submission, nor have you embraced petty schemes. Today, the petty people have risen to power. They advocate submission, humility, cunning, diligence, consideration, and a long list of petty virtues. Everything that is effeminate, everything that stems from servitude, and especially the blending of the masses. They wish to rule over the fate of all humanity. Oh, revulsion, revulsion, revulsion. They endlessly inquire, never growing weary, how can man sustain himself best, longest, and most comfortably? They have become the masters of today. These masters of today, surpass them, my brothers, these petty people. They are the greatest threat to the Superman. Surpass, you higher individuals, the petty virtues, the petty strategies, the grain-sized considerations, the ant-hill politics, the pitiable complacency, and the happiness of the majority, and if need be, choose despair over submission. Truly, I love you because you do not know how to live in today's world, you higher individuals. For this is how you live, best. Courage of the hermit and the eagle, gazing into the abyss. Do you possess courage, my brothers? Are you bold of heart? Not the courage displayed in front of others, but the courage of the hermit and the eagle, the kind that not even a god can see. I do not consider cold souls, mules, the blind, and the drunken to be courageous. True courage belongs to those who know fear but conquer it, those who gaze into the abyss with pride. The one who peers into the abyss with the eyes of an eagle, the one who grasps the abyss with eagle's talons, he possesses courage. The necessity of evil, the great force within man. Man is evil, so said the wisest ones to console me. Ah, if only it were still true today, for evil is the greatest force in man. Man must become better and more evil. That is what I teach. The utmost evil is necessary for the best of the Superman. It may have been suitable for the preacher of the common people to suffer and be burdened by the sins of men. But I take great sin as my great consolation. However, such things are not spoken for every ear. Not every word is suitable for every mouth. These are lofty and distant matters, not meant for the understanding of simpletons. Beyond correction, the pursuit of honesty and virtue. Do you, higher individuals, believe that I am here to correct what you have done wrong? Or that I intend to make more comfortable beds for you, the afflicted? Or to reveal new and easier paths for you restless, wandering and climbing souls? No, no, 3 times no. More and better individuals of your kind shall always emerge, for your trials shall always become worse and more challenging. Only through this, does humanity ascend to the heights where lightning strikes and shatters, high enough for lightning. My soul and my quest reach out to the few, the distant and the enduring. Your many little and brief miseries matter little to me. You have not yet suffered enough for me, for you suffer from yourselves, not yet from humanity. You would be lying if you said otherwise. None of you suffer as I have suffered. Striving for the Superman, rejecting petty virtues. It's not enough for me that lightning no longer causes harm. I don't want to redirect it away. It must learn to work for me. My wisdom has gathered over time like a cloud, becoming stiller and darker. That's what all wisdom does that will one day unleash lightning. I don't want to be light to these people of today, nor do I want to be called light. Them, I want to blind. Lightning of my wisdom, strike out their eyes. Be your own light, ascending to great heights. Do not desire anything beyond your capabilities, as there is deceit in those who desire beyond their capabilities, especially when they desire great things. For those who aspire to greatness awaken suspicion. They are cunning counterfeiters and actors on a stage, until in the end they become false even to themselves, cross-eyed, tarnished with white blemishes, adorned with grand words, and displaying false virtues and impressive but deceptive deeds. Beware, you higher individuals, for nothing is more valuable and scarce to me than honesty. Is today not the age of the masses? The masses, however, do not discern what is great from what is small, what is straight from what is honest. They are naturally crooked, perpetually deceptive. Skepticism in a world of the masses, be wary of false values. Today, you higher individuals, you courageous and open-hearted ones, should exercise a healthy skepticism, and keep your reasons to yourselves, for today is a day for the common people. What the common people once believed without reasons, who can convince them otherwise with reasons? In the marketplace, one persuades through gestures, not reasons. Reasons make the common people distrustful. And when truth has triumphed there, ask yourselves with a good dose of skepticism, what strong error fought in its favor? Also, be wary of the educated. They dislike you because they are unproductive. They have cold, lifeless eyes that strip every bird of its feathers. These individuals boast about not lying, but the inability to lie is far from a love for truth. Be cautious. Freedom from falsehood is not the same as knowledge. I do not trust those with icy spirits. He who cannot lie does not truly know what truth is. Using your own legs, independence on the path to greatness. If you wish to ascend to great heights, then use your own legs. Do not rely on others to carry you upward, and do not sit upon the backs and heads of others. Have you mounted a horse? Are you now riding swiftly toward your goal? Well, my friend, your lame foot is still with you even on horseback. When you reach your destination, when you dismount from your horse, right at the peak, you, the higher individual, will stumble, birthing your own child, rejecting false values. You creators, you higher individuals, one can only be pregnant with one's own child. Do not allow yourselves to be deceived or burdened by others. Who then is your neighbor? Even if you act for your neighbor, you are still not creating for them. I urge you to unlearn this for, you creators. Your true virtue wants nothing to do with for or because. Close your ears to these false little words. For one's neighbor is the virtue of petty people who say and hand washes hand. They neither have the right nor the capacity for your self-seeking. In your self-seeking, you creators, there lies the foresight and anticipation of the pregnant. What no one's eye has yet seen, the fruit, this is what shelters, saves and nurtures your entire love. Where your entire love resides, with your child, there is also your entire virtue. Your work, your will, is your neighbor. Do not let false values impose upon you. The impurity of giving birth, cleansing the soul. You creators, you higher individuals, whoever must give birth is unwell. Whoever has given birth, however, is impure. Ask women, they give birth not because it brings pleasure. The pain makes hens and poets cackle. You creators, there is much impurity in you. That is because you have had to be mothers. With a new child, oh, how much new filth has also entered the world. Go apart. Those who have given birth shall cleanse their souls. Embracing your humanity, the capacity to overcome. Do not strive for virtue beyond your capabilities, and do not pursue goals that contradict probability. Follow in the footsteps of your Father's virtues. How can you ascend if your Father's will does not rise with you? But be cautious, for he who seeks to be a pioneer should beware of becoming a relic. Do not set yourselves up as saints where your fathers had vices. For example, if your fathers indulged in women, strong wine, and the flesh of wild boars, it would be foolish to demand chastity from yourselves. It would be ridiculous for someone like that to have 1, 2, or 3 wives, or to start monasteries with signs reading, "The path to holiness" over their doors. This is just a new kind of foolishness. These individuals establish penitential and refuge houses for themselves, and it may serve some purpose, but I do not believe in it. In solitude, one's inner nature is cultivated, including one's animal instincts. Therefore, solitude is not advisable for many. Have there ever been beings filthier on earth than the desert saints? Not only did the devil roam around them, but also the swine. Laughing at the world, the joy of laughter. Shy, ashamed and awkward, I have often seen you, higher individuals, withdraw, just like a tiger whose leap has failed. You made a throw, and it didn't succeed. But does it truly matter, you players of the dice? You hadn't yet learned to play and jest as one must play and jest. Aren't we always seated at a grand table of jesting and playing? And if great things have failed with you, does that mean you have failed? And if you have failed, does that mean humanity has failed? But if humanity has indeed failed, well then, so be it. Failures of the higher individuals, learning to laugh at oneself. The higher the type, the less often success is achieved. You higher individuals here, haven't you all been failures? Take heart. What does it matter? There is still so much possible. Learn to laugh at yourselves as you should. Is it any wonder that you have failed, and only partially succeeded, you who are partially shattered? Isn't humanity's future striving and struggling within you? Humanity's deepest, most profound, and highest aspirations, its incredible powers, don't they all intermingle within your being? Is it any wonder that many vessels shatter? Learn to laugh at yourselves as you should. You higher individuals, oh, how much is still possible. And indeed, how much has already succeeded. How rich is this earth in small, good, perfect things, in well-constituted things. Surround yourselves with small, good, perfect things, you higher individuals. Their golden maturity heals the heart. The perfect teaches one to hope. Beware of the absolute ones, rejecting ill will towards life. What has been considered the greatest sin on earth until now? Was it not the word of him who said, "Woe to those who laugh now"? Did he himself find no reason for laughter on earth? Then he sought poorly. Even a child can find reasons to laugh. He did not love enough, otherwise he would have loved us, the ones who laugh. But he hated and mocked us. He promised us wailing and gnashing of teeth. Must one curse immediately when one does not love? That seems like bad taste to me. But he, this absolute one, did just that. He came from the common people, and he himself did not love enough. Otherwise, he would have raged less because people did not love him. All great love does not seek love, it seeks more. Avoid all such absolute ones. They are a poor, sickly type, a common type. They view this life with ill will. They have an evil eye for this world. Stay away from all such absolute ones. They have heavy hearts and sultry souls. They do not know how to dance. How could the earth be light to such individuals? Dance like a cat, approaching happiness with laughter. Good things often approach their goal in a winding manner. Like cats, they arch their backs and purr with inner delight as they approach their happiness. All good things laugh. You can tell by someone's stride whether they are walking on their own path. Just watch me walk. But the one who nears their goal dances. I haven't become a statue. I don't stand there stiff, dull and unmoving like a pillar. I love swift movement. Even if there are swamps and thick troubles on earth, those with nimble feet can run across the mud and dance as if on well-polished ice. Lift up your hearts, my brothers, high, higher, and don't forget your legs. Lift up your legs, you good dancers, and even better, stand on your heads. Zarathustra the dancer, adorning oneself with laughter. This crown of laughter, this garland of roses, I have adorned myself with it. I have consecrated my own laughter. For today, I have found no one else potent enough for this task. I am Zarathustra the dancer, Zarathustra the light one, who beckons with his wings, ready for flight, calling to all birds, prepared and joyful. I am Zarathustra the soothsayer, Zarathustra the laughter prophet, not impatient, not absolute, one who loves leaps and sidesteps. I have adorned myself with this crown myself. Unlearn the sighs of sorrow, stand on your proper legs. Lift up your hearts, my brothers, high, higher, and don't forget your legs. Lift up your legs too, you good dancers, and even better if you can stand on your heads. There are also heavy animals in a state of happiness, and some are born club-footed. They try to do strange things, like an elephant trying to stand on its head. But it's better to be foolish with happiness than foolish with misfortune. It's better to dance awkwardly than to walk lamely. So, I urge you, my higher individuals, learn my wisdom. Even the worst thing has two good sides. Even the worst thing has good dancing legs. So I beseech you, my higher individuals, stand on your proper legs. Unlearn the sighs of sorrow and the sadness of the masses. Oh, how sad the fools of the masses seem to me today, but today is their day. Dance like the wind, praising the spirit of the storm. Dance like the wind as it rushes forth from its mountain caves, dancing to its own tune. The seas tremble and leap under its steps. Praise be to that good, unruly spirit, which comes like a hurricane to the present and the populace alike. It is hostile to thistleheads, puzzleheads, withered leaves and weeds. Praise be to this wild, good, free spirit of the storm, which dances upon marshes and afflictions as it does on meadows. It hates the sickly populous dogs and all the ill-constituted, sullen brood. Praise be to this spirit of all free spirits, the laughing storm, which blows dust into the eyes of the gloomy and melancholic. You, higher individuals, the worst thing about you is that none of you have learned to dance as you should, beyond yourselves. What does it matter if you have failed? So, learn to laugh beyond yourselves. Lift up your hearts, you good dancers, higher and higher, and do not forget the joy of laughter. This crown of laughter, this rose garland crown, I cast it to you, my brothers. I have consecrated laughter. You higher individuals, learn, I implore you to laugh. In The Higher Man, Nietzsche presents Zarathustra's vision for individuals who transcend common values, embodying strength, courage, and joy even when faced with struggle. Zarathustra contrasts the higher man with those tied to the marketplace, warning that the crowd clings to the notion of equality, denying the existence of anyone truly exceptional. For Zarathustra, the higher man must separate from this environment, leaving behind the marketplace's noise and uniformity to cultivate a life of independence, inner strength, and self-mastery. With the declaration, "God is dead," Zarathustra sees both an ending and a beginning. The removal of a divine overseer paves the way for human greatness. Now, without a God to submit to, humanity must reach within to redefine meaning and aspire toward the Superman, an individual who pursues greatness beyond established morality. To Zarathustra, the focus shifts from merely sustaining humanity to surpassing it. The Superman emerges, not by following the crowd's call for safety and comfort, but by pushing beyond, living for challenge and the cultivation of power. Zarathustra appeals to his followers to embrace what he calls the courage of the hermit and the eagle, a solitary strength unafraid to gaze into the abyss. The higher man, unlike the masses, must dare to confront his own fears and desires, refusing to submit to comfort or compromise. This inner resilience is crucial for embracing the world as it is, including its harshness. Zarathustra argues that humanity needs more evil, in the sense of boldness and refusal, to be constrained by traditional morality, which he views as stifling. Throughout, Zarathustra sharply criticizes petty virtues like humility and submission, which he sees as tools of the mediocre to control the exceptional. Rather than bending to such values, the higher man should be ruthless in his ambition, embracing struggle and even the possibility of failure. Zarathustra tells his followers to abandon the need to correct or soften the path for others, urging instead that they seek ever greater heights, even if it means enduring isolation or hardship. In Zarathustra's eyes, true greatness means resisting the comfortable life and instead daring to be extraordinary, even in solitude. Emphasizing laughter and joy, Zarathustra presents these as essential to the higher man's spirit. For Zarathustra, laughter is a form of triumph over adversity and a rejection of despair. He celebrates the willingness to dance like the wind, to take risks, and to celebrate life's uncertainties. By learning to laugh, the higher man distances himself from the weight of societal expectations, embracing instead a joyful strength that sees beauty in challenge. Finally, Zarathustra appeals to his followers to surround themselves with small, good, perfect things, finding hope and inspiration in moments of beauty and simplicity. These are touchstones, reminders of potential, and sources of strength on the journey towards self-overcoming. Ultimately, the higher man encapsulates Nietzsche's call for a reimagining of humanity, to rise beyond mere survival, to pursue self-created values, and to live with courage, creativity, and laughter in the face of an often challenging world. Chapter 74, The Song of Melancholy. Zarathustra's Departure, a love letter to his animals. When Zarathustra spoke these words, he stood near the entrance of his cave, but with his final words he slipped away from his guests and ventured into the open air. "Oh, the pure scents that surround me," he exclaimed. "Oh, the blessed stillness around me. But where are my animals? Come here, my eagle and my serpent. Tell me, my animals, do these higher men not smell good? Oh, the pure scents around me. Now I truly know and feel how much I love you, my animals." And Zarathustra said once more, "I love you, my animals." The eagle and the serpent pressed close to him when he spoke these words, looking up at him. In this shared silence, they all sniffed and savored the fresh air together. The air outside was better than that with the higher men. The melancholic demon unleashed, a cunning magician's confession. However, as soon as Zarathustra had left the cave, the old magician got up, glanced around him with a sly look and said, "He is gone, and already, you higher individuals, allow me to flatter you with this complimentary name, just as he does. Already, my malevolent spirit of deception and magic attacks me, my melancholic demon. This demon is an adversary to Zarathustra from the depths of my heart. Forgive me for it. Now it wants to perform tricks before you. Its moment has come. I struggle in vain against this malevolent spirit. To all of you, whatever honors you like to claim in your names, whether you call yourselves the free spirits, the conscientious, the penitents of the spirit, the unfettered, or the great longers, to all of you who, like me, suffer from the great loathing, to those for whom the old god has died, and no new god lies in cradles and swaddling clothes yet, my malevolent spirit and magic demon is favorable. I know you, you higher individuals, and I know him. I also know this fiend, whom I love against my will, this Zarathustra. He often seems to me like the beautiful mask of a saint, like a new and strange masquerade, in which my malevolent spirit, the melancholic demon, takes delight. I love Zarathustra, so it often seems to me, for the sake of my malevolent spirit. But now, it is attacking and compelling me, this spirit of melancholy, this evening twilight demon. And truly, you higher individuals, it has a desire, open your eyes. It has a desire to come naked, whether male or female I do not yet know, but it is coming, it is constraining me. Alas, open your minds. The day is fading, and evening is approaching for all things, even for the best things. Now listen and observe, you higher individuals, what devil, whether man or woman, this spirit of evening melancholy is. The old magician spoke these words, gave a cunning look around him, and then seized his harp. Thus spoke the old magician. He cast a sly glance around, and then picked up his harp. The Song of Melancholy, Insights into the Poet's Soul. In the clear evening air, when the soothing dew gently pours down to the earth, invisible and unheard, for tender footwear, the soothing dews wear, like all that's gentle and kind. Do you remember then, do you remember, burning heart, how once you thirsted for heaven's kindly teardrops and dew's gentle fall, all parched and weary, you thirsted, when on yellow grassy pathways, wicked occidental sunbeams played through the dark trees around you, blindingly sunny glances, joyfully blinding. The wooer of truth, you, they taunted. No, merely a poet, a cunning, deceitful and lowly creature who always must lie, knowingly, willingly, always lying, lusting for plunder, masked in many disguises, concealed, shrouded, his own booty, he, a wooer of truth, no, just a fool, just a poet, speaking in riddles, shouting confusedly from the mask of a fool, circumambulating on fabricated word bridges, on colourful rainbow arches, between the false heavenly and the false earthly, roaming around us, soaring around us, mere fool, mere poet. He, a wooer of truth, not calm, stiff, smooth and cold, becoming an image, a godlike statue, set up in front of temples as a god's own door-guard, no, hostile to all such truthful statues, homelier in every desert than at temples, with feline playfulness, leaping through every window, swiftly into opportunities, sniffing in every wild forest, greedily, longingly, sniffing, that you, in wild forests, among the speckled fierce creatures, should roam, sinful and colourful, licking your lips with longing, blissfully mocking, blissfully devilish, blissfully bloodthirsty, stealing, sneaking, lying, roaming. Or like eagles that fixedly, long down the precipice look, down their precipice. Oh, how they whirl down now thereunder therein, deeper into profoundness they whirl. Then suddenly, with precise aim, with trembling flight, pouncing on lambs, headlong down, fiercely hungry, longing for lambs, fierce against all lamb-like spirits, furious against all who appear sheepish or lamb-eyed, or with curly wool, grey, with lamb-sheep kindness. Even so, eagle-like, panther-like, are the poet's desires, your own desires under 1,000 guises, you fool, you poet, you who viewed all of humanity, as God views them, like sheep, the God to rend within humanity, as the sheep in humanity, and in rending, laughing. That is your own blessedness, of a panther and an eagle, blessedness, of a poet and a fool, the blessedness. In the clear evening air, when the moon's sickle, green between the purple glows, sneaks out jealous, the enemy of day, with every step in secret, the rosy hammocks of garlands drooping, until they've sunk into the night, faded, gone down. Thus I had sunk one day from my own truth insanity, from my own fervent day longings, weary of the day, tired of sunshine, sunk downward, downward, into the shadows, because of one truth, all scorched and thirsty. Do you still remember? Do you remember, burning heart, how you thirsted then, that I should be banned from all truth, mere fool, mere poet? In the Song of Melancholy, Nietzsche deepens the tension between Zarathustra's natural wisdom and the human complexities of his followers, the higher men. Zarathustra, stepping out of the cave to breathe in the purity of the open air, feels a renewed affection for his animals, the eagle and serpent, symbols of strength, vision, and cunning. These animals embody Zarathustra's values of courage and clear-sightedness, qualities he finds unclouded in the natural world, but often compromised in human aspirations. His retreat to nature is a reprieve from the presence of the higher men, whose philosophical preoccupations weigh down the atmosphere within the cave. Once Zarathustra departs, the old magician reveals a starkly different response to solitude. Turning to the assembled higher men, he confronts his melancholy demon, the inner force that compels him to deceive and manipulate even as he seeks truth. His song becomes a confession, exposing the paradox of the artist and intellectual who craves truth but finds himself compelled to disguise it. The poet, described as a mere fool, is drawn to illusion and trickery, forever constructing fabricated word bridges between the false heavenly and the false earthly. This artist is both creator and charlatan, perpetually aware that his art beautifies and distorts reality, caught in an eternal cycle of craving authenticity but knowing his creations are fundamentally false. The magician's Song of Melancholy thus lays bare the artist's existential plight. He sees and understands the world deeply, yet can only express it through veiled forms and deceptive beauty. The poet's wisdom lies in his understanding of this tragic irony, that he is a fool, creating only the illusion of truth. As he speaks, the evening's melancholy envelops him, a metaphor for the inevitable decline of human ideals, even the noblest ones. This twilight atmosphere reflects the artist's acceptance of his limitations, knowing that the day, the light of pure truth, fades, and in its place comes the darker, ambiguous night of human weakness and illusion. Through the magician's introspection, Nietzsche offers a critique of those who strive for truth, yet remain trapped in their own illusions, particularly artists and philosophers. Unlike Zarathustra, who embodies a primal connection to nature's honesty, the magician's melancholy shows a dependence on human pretense and embellishment. In this way, the contrast is clear. Zarathustra's bond with his eagle and serpent, symbols of strength and clarity, stands against the artist's entrapment in his word bridges and fantasies. The melancholy twilight here is not just personal, but philosophical. It captures Nietzsche's broader view of humanity's struggle between idealism and self-deception, revealing the artist as a figure forever seeking, yet never possessing true wisdom. Ultimately, the Song of Melancholy explores the tragedy within those who seek the higher path. Their journey toward truth is continually undercut by the need to beautify or distort it. Zarathustra's brief retreat to nature symbolizes an escape from this cycle, a momentary release into pure being, while the magician's lament is a haunting reminder of the limitations within those who create and seek understanding but remain forever tethered to illusion. Chapter 75. Science. The magician sang his song, and all those present were ensnared by his artful and melancholic allure. Only the spiritually conscientious one remained unaffected. He promptly seized the harp from the magician's hands and exclaimed, "Air! Let in fresh air! Let Zarathustra enter! You're making this cave stifling and poisonous, you wicked old magician! You lead astray, you deceiver, you cunning one, into unknown desires and desolation. And oh, how you talk and make a fuss about the truth! Alas, to all free spirits who are not cautious around such magicians, their freedom is in jeopardy. You instruct and tempt them back into prisons. You old melancholic devil, your lament hides a seduction within. You resemble those who, with praise of chastity, secretly beckon toward sensuality." The conscientious one spoke thus. However, the old magician, reveling in his triumph, tolerated the annoyance caused by the conscientious one. He responded with a humble tone, "Be silent. Good songs deserve a good echo. One should remain silent for a while after good songs. That's what all these higher men do. But perhaps you understood little of my song. There's little of the magic spirit in you." "You praise me," replied the conscientious one, "by separating me from yourself. Very well. But you others, what do I see? You still sit there, all of you, with lusting eyes. You free spirits, where has your freedom gone? You almost appear to me like those who have watched bad girls dance naked for too long. Your very souls are dancing. In you, you higher men, there must be more of what the magician calls his evil spirit of magic and deception. We must indeed be different." And indeed, we spoke and thought together long enough before Zarathustra returned to his cave for me to be aware that we are different. Even up here, you and I seek different things. I seek more security. That's why I came to Zarathustra. He is still the most steadfast tower and will, today, when everything is shaking, when the whole world trembles. But you, when I see the look in your eyes, it almost seems like you seek more insecurity, more horror, more danger, more earthquakes. You long for the worst and most dangerous life, which terrifies me the most, for the life of wild beasts, for forests, caves, steep mountains, and labyrinthine gorges. It's not those who lead you out of danger that please you most, but those who lead you away from all paths, the misleaders. However, if such a desire is real in you, it still seems impossible to me. For fear, that is the original and fundamental feeling of humans. Everything is explained through fear, original sin, and original virtue. My virtue, which is science, also grew from fear. The fear of wild animals has been deeply ingrained in humans, including the animal that they conceal and fear within themselves. Zarathustra calls it the beast inside. This ancient fear, over time, has become subtle, spiritual, and intellectual. Today, I believe it is called science. The conscientious one spoke these words, but Zarathustra, who had just returned to his cave and heard the last discourse, threw a handful of roses at the conscientious one and laughed at his truths. "Why," he exclaimed, "what did I just hear? It seems to me that you are a fool, or perhaps I am one. Let me quickly turn your truths upside down, because fear is the exception with us. Courage, adventure, and delight in the uncertain and unattempted, courage, I believe, is the entire primitive history of humanity. Man envied the wildest and most courageous animals and robbed them of all their virtues, thus becoming man. This courage, refined over time into something subtle, spiritual, and intellectual, this human courage, with the wings of an eagle and the wisdom of a serpent, this, I believe, is what we call today." "Zarathustra!" cried all of them in unison, bursting into laughter. Yet a heavy cloud seemed to rise from them. Even the magician laughed and said wisely, "Well, my evil spirit is gone. Didn't I warn you when I said it was a deceiver, a lying and deceitful spirit, especially when it reveals itself naked? But what can I do about its tricks? Did I create it and the world? Well, let's be good again and in good spirits. And even though Zarathustra looks at me with an evil eye, just look at him. He dislikes me. Before the night comes, he will learn to love and praise me again. He can't go long without committing such follies. He loves his enemies. This art he knows better than anyone I have seen, but he takes revenge for it, on his friends." The old magician spoke, and the higher men applauded him, causing Zarathustra to go around and mischievously and lovingly shake hands with his friends, as if he had to make amends and apologize to everyone for something. However, when he reached the door of his cave, he longed for the fresh air outside and his animals, and wished to sneak out. In science, Nietzsche presents a clash between different spirits of truth-seeking, the poetic seduction of the magician and the cautious skepticism of the spiritually conscientious one. The magician's song, filled with melancholy and allure, enchants the gathering, except for the conscientious one who calls for air, accusing the magician of leading others astray with seductive half-truths. This character insists that science, born from fear, is a protective response, a defense against the primal dangers within and without. For him, science offers security in a world of chaos. Zarathustra, however, disrupts this viewpoint, proposing instead that humanity's essence is not rooted in fear, but in courage. He flips the conscientious one's truths by claiming that man's spirit is born from the daring pursuit of uncertainty. For Zarathustra, courage, refined into intelligence and insight, is the driving force of human evolution, not the retreat to safety that science often represents. This exchange reveals a central tension in Nietzsche's philosophy, the attraction of safe, structured knowledge versus the exhilaration of existential risk. Zarathustra's laughter and light-hearted gestures after the debate underscore his own view that true wisdom isn't bound by rigid definitions, but finds joy in embracing both friends and adversaries, truth and illusion. In this moment, Nietzsche suggests that the higher man, capable of embracing life's paradoxes, must balance both courage and caution, the search for security and the thrill of risk. Chapter 76. Among Daughters of the Desert. Zarathustra's shadow pleads, "Stay among the desert maidens." "Do not depart," said the wanderer who called himself Zarathustra's shadow. "Stay with us, or else the old gloomy affliction might once again descend upon us. The old magician has just shared his worst with us for our benefit, and behold, the good and pious Pope here has tears in his eyes, and has set sail once more on the sea of melancholy. Those kings may put on a good facade before us, for that is what they've learned best from us lately. But if they were left unseen, I wager they would again play the dark game, the game of drifting clouds, damp melancholy, veiled heavens, stolen suns, and howling autumn winds. The game of our howling and crying for help might begin again. Stay with us, O Zarathustra. Here, much hidden misery longs to speak. There is much evening, many clouds and damp air. You have nourished us with strong food for men and powerful proverbs. Do not let the weak womanly spirits attack us again after dinner. You alone make the air strong and clear around you. I have traveled many lands, and my nose has learned to discern and appreciate various types of air, but with you in your cave, my nostrils find the greatest delight. Unless it be, forgive an old memory. Forgive me an old after-dinner song that I once composed among desert maidens. With them, too, the air was equally good and clear, like an oriental paradise, far from the cloudy, damp melancholy of old Europe. I loved those oriental maidens, and the azure heavens above them, untouched by clouds and thoughts. You would not believe how charmingly they sat there when they were not dancing, profound yet thoughtless, like little secrets, like enigmatic puzzles, like dessert nuts. They were many-hued and foreign, but without clouds, riddles that could be guessed. I composed an after-dinner psalm to please such maidens. With these words, the wanderer seized the old magician's harp, crossed his legs, and looked around calmly and sagely. He inhaled the air slowly and inquisitively, like someone tasting the new foreign air of a new country. Then he began to sing with a kind of roaring. The deserts grow, woe him who doth them hide. Ha, solemnly, in effect solemnly, a worthy beginning, in an African manner solemnly, worthy of a lion, or perhaps of a virtuous howl-monkey. But it doesn't concern you, beloved friendly maidens, at whose feet for the first time a European under palm trees is granted a seat. Selah. Wonderful, truly. Here I sit now near the desert, yet I am still far from the desert, not deserted at all. I'm swallowed by this tiny oasis. It opened up like a yawn, its loveliest mouth agape, most sweet-scented of all mouths, and I fell right in, right down, right through, among you, beloved friendly maidens. Selah, hail, hail to that whale, fish-like, if it made things nice for its guest. You surely understand my reference. Hail to its belly, if it had a loveliest oasis belly like this one, though I doubt it. With this I come from old Europe, which doubts more eagerly than any elderly married woman. May the Lord improve it. Amen. Here I sit now in this tiniest oasis, like a date indeed, brown, sweet gold dripping, for the lips of a longing maiden, but even more for youthful, snow-white, ice-cold and incisor-like front teeth, and for such, hearts of ardent date fruits pine. Selah. Now similar to those south fruits, I lie here, surrounded by little flying insects, sniffing around and playing, and also by even smaller, foolish, more sinful desires and fantasies, surrounded by you, silent, prescient, maiden kittens, Dudu and Suleika, like sphinxes, to put it in one word. Forgive me, O God, for such sinful speech. Here I sit, savouring the freshest air, paradisal air truly, bright and buoyant, golden mottled, as goodly as the air that fell from the lunar orb, by chance or by arrogance, as ancient poets tell it. But I doubt it. With this I come from old Europe, which doubts more eagerly than any elderly married woman. May the Lord improve it. Amen. Drinking this finest air, nostrils swollen like goblets, without a future, without memories. Here I sit, you beloved friendly maidens, and look at the palm tree there, how it bows and bends, as if dancing like a dancer, always on one leg, persistently, too long, dangerously, always, always, just on one leg. Has it forgotten the other leg? At least it seems so. I searched in vain for the missing fellow jewel, the other leg, in the sacred precincts, near her most cherished, most tender skirt, fluttering and flickering. Yes, if you would, beautiful friendly ones, take my word for it. She has, alas, lost it. It's gone, forever gone. The other leg, oh, pity for that loveliest other leg. Where may it be now, abandoned and weeping? The loneliest leg? Perhaps it's afraid of a furious yellow, blonde and curly leonine monster, or perhaps it's even gnawed away, nibbled badly, most wretched, woeful, nibbled badly. Selah. Oh, don't weep, gentle spirits, don't weep, you date-fruit spirits, milk bosoms, don't weep, you pale Dudu. Be strong, Suleika, bold, bold. Or should there be something strengthening, heart-strengthening? Here that's most appropriate. An inspiring text, a solemn exhortation. Ha! Rise now. Honor, moral honor, European honor. Blow again, continue bellows box of virtue. Ha! Roar once more, your moral roar, like a virtuous lion roaring near the daughters of the desert. For the roar of virtue, my dearest maidens, is stronger than any European fervor, European passion. And now I stand here, as a European, I can't be different with God's help. Amen. The deserts grow, woe to him who hides them. In Among Daughters of the Desert, Nietzsche presents Zarathustra's shadow as both a pleading companion and a reminder of human frailty. The shadow's request that Zarathustra stay among them exposes the group's dependency on Zarathustra's presence to maintain emotional stability. They fear that without his grounding influence, they will slip back into the old gloomy affliction, a metaphor for the melancholy and existential dread that haunted them before. This sense of longing for guidance underscores a central theme of Nietzsche's work: the need for a strong spirit to inspire others and keep despair at bay. The shadow's nostalgic tale of his time with desert maidens contrasts the dreariness of European self-reflection with the carefree sensuality of life in the desert. He describes these women as enigmatic, yet free from the heavy thoughts and doubts that cloud European minds. The image of the desert maidens, playful, profound, yet thoughtless, suggests a simpler, almost idealized existence, untouched by the intellectual burden that weighs down the guests at Zarathustra's table. The wanderer's words here reflect a yearning for freedom from introspection, a desire for a paradise of innocence and sensual beauty, far removed from philosophical struggle. His song is a curious mix of irony and reverence. He praises the desert's clear air, a metaphor for purity and freedom, yet he contrasts it with the cloudy and damp atmosphere of Europe, heavy with introspection and moral rigidity. By singing an exaggerated, almost mocking hymn to these carefree desert women, the shadow simultaneously mocks and longs for a life devoid of the deep self-awareness that characterizes Zarathustra's philosophy. As the song continues, it becomes an odd blend of humor and solemnity, ridiculing Europe's moral posturing and its obsession with doubt. Lines such as, "Hail, hail to that whale, if it made things nice for its guest," mix irony with a playful innocence, suggesting a life unburdened by meaning and purpose. Yet the refrain, "The deserts grow, woe to him who hides them," brings the song back to a sober reality. This warning captures a paradox. Ignoring life's harsh realities only allows them to grow and eventually overwhelm us. Thus, Zarathustra's shadow exposes the guest's desire to escape into fantasy, yet Nietzsche subtly points out that such escape is fleeting. The song is both a celebration of freedom and a reminder that the absence of hardship, though tempting, offers no lasting fulfillment. Zarathustra's role becomes clear. He's the one who brings them back to a challenging yet vibrant existence, pushing them to confront life's complexities rather than evade them. This chapter, through its mix of nostalgia, irony, and wit, serves as a reflection on the human craving for simplicity in a world that demands depth. Chapter 77, The Awakening. Zarathustra's triumph over gravity and the higher men's laughter. After the song of the wanderer and shadow, the cave suddenly filled with noise and laughter. The assembled guests were all speaking at once, and even the donkey, encouraged by the commotion, no longer remained silent. Zarathustra felt a slight aversion and scorn for his visitors, although he was pleased with their happiness. It seemed like a sign of recovery to him. So he slipped out into the open air and spoke to his animals. "Where has their distress gone now?" he said. "It seems that they have unlearned their cries of distress with me, though, alas, not yet their crying." Zarathustra stopped his ears, as the braying of the donkey mixed strangely with the noisy jubilation of the higher men. "They are merry," he began again, "and who knows? Perhaps at their host's expense. If they have learned to laugh from me, it is still not my laughter they have learned. But what does it matter? They are old people, they recover in their own way, they laugh in their own way. My ears have endured worse and have not become peevish. This day is a victory. The spirit of gravity, my old arch-enemy, is already yielding and fleeing." Zarathustra rejoiced, and the evening was approaching. He saw the sky brightening over the sea, and felt that the day, which had begun so badly and gloomily, was about to end well. "It is about to end," he thought. "The evening is coming, the good rider is riding over the sea. How it bobs, the blessed one, the homeward-bound one, in its purple saddles. The sky gazes brightly upon it, and the world lies deep." Zarathustra turned his attention back to the cave, where the cries and laughter of the higher men continued. He said to himself, "They are biting at it, my bait is taking hold. The spirit of gravity is departing from them. Now they are learning to laugh at themselves. My virile food is having its effect, my strong and savory sayings. I did not nourish them with flatulent vegetables, but with warrior food, with conqueror food. I awakened new desires in them, new hopes in their hearts. They find new words, and soon their spirits will breathe wantonness. This food may not be suitable for children or for young and old girls in love. Their bowels are persuaded differently. I am not their physician and teacher. Disgust is departing from these higher men, and that is my victory. In my domain, they become confident. All foolish shame flees from them. They empty themselves. They empty their hearts, and good times return to them. They keep holiday and contemplate. They become thankful. That is the best sign. They become thankful. It won't be long before they create festivals and set up memorials to their old joys. They are convalescing." Zarathustra spoke joyfully to his heart and looked outward. His animals pressed up to him, honoring his happiness and his silence. Higher men's devotion to the revered donkey. Suddenly, Zarathustra's ears were startled as the once noisy and laughter-filled cave fell silent as death. His nose detected a sweet scent and the aroma of incense, as if from burning pine cones. "What's happening? What are they doing?" he wondered, sneaking up to the entrance to observe his guests unnoticed. To his astonishment, he beheld an extraordinary sight with his own eyes. "They have all become pious again, praying they are mad," he exclaimed, utterly bewildered. Indeed, all these higher individuals, both kings, the retired pope, the malevolent magician, the voluntary beggar, the wanderer and the shadow, the old soothsayer, the spiritually conscientious one, and the ugliest man, all knelt like children and credulous old women, worshipping a donkey. And at that moment, the ugliest man began to gurgle and snort, as if something inexpressible within him sought to find expression. When he finally found words, it was a strange and devout litany in praise of the revered and incensed donkey. The litany sounded as follows: "Amen, and glory, honor, wisdom, thanks, praise and strength be to our God, from everlasting to everlasting." The donkey, however, here brayed, "Ye-ah! He bears our burdens. He has taken upon himself the form of a servant. He is patient of heart, and never says nay, and he who loves his God chastises him." The donkey, however, here brayed, "Ye-ah! He speaks not, except to ever say yes to the world he created. Thus he extols his world. It is his artfulness that remains silent. Thus he is seldom found to be wrong." The donkey, however, here brayed, "Ye-ah!" Ungainly, he traverses the world. Grey is the favorite color in which he cloaks his virtue. If he possesses spirit, he conceals it. Yet everyone believes in his long ears. The donkey, however, here brayed, "Ye-ah!" What hidden wisdom it is to have long ears, and to only say, yes, never no. Has he not created the world in his own image, as stupid as possible? The donkey, however, here brayed, "Ye-ah!" You walk straight and crooked paths. You care little about what appears straight or crooked to us humans. Beyond good and evil is your domain. It is your innocence not to know what innocence is. The donkey, however, here brayed, "Ye-ah!" See how you reject no one, neither beggars nor kings. You allow little children to approach you, and when mischievous boys taunt you, you simply say, "Ye-ah!" The donkey, however, here brayed, "Ye-ah!" You love she-donkeys and fresh figs. You are not a despiser of food. A thistle pleases your heart when you happen to be hungry. Therein lies the wisdom of a god. The donkey, however, here brayed, "Ye-ah!" In the awakening, Zarathustra witnesses his followers beginning to break free from despair, signaling a triumph over the spirit of gravity. Nietzsche's concept for the weight of self-importance, guilt, and rigid morality. The laughter and noise within the cave, even including the donkey's braying, mark a turning point. Here, laughter symbolizes more than joy. It is a sign of release, a rejection of the heavy burdens that have held them down. Zarathustra, though slightly dismayed by their unrestrained merriment, sees in it a positive transformation. They are not yet laughing his laughter, a fearless, life-affirming laughter, but they are progressing towards self-overcoming. Yet, in a twist, Zarathustra's satisfaction shifts to bafflement when he finds his guests kneeling in reverence before a donkey. Worshipping the donkey, these higher men, representing various social, religious, and moral archetypes, reveal a lingering tendency toward idolization, even of the absurd. The donkey, in Nietzsche's symbolism, embodies patience, submissive endurance, and a lack of questioning, a comically tragic antithesis to the ideals of strength, autonomy, and courage that Zarathustra seeks to instill. Their worship becomes an ironic chant of praises that expose the folly in blind reverence. Their words, filled with exaggerated admiration for the donkey's traits, its silence, its acceptance, and its perceived wisdom, parody religious and moral devotion that venerates passivity and submission. Nietzsche critiques here not just organized religion, but the human tendency to bow to whatever seems holy, even if it is empty or absurd. This awakening, then, is only partial. Zarathustra's laughter and teachings have begun to erode the seriousness and heaviness in their spirits, but they have not fully escaped the lure of false idols. For Nietzsche, the donkey-worshipping scene underscores a central theme. Even as individuals seek enlightenment, they can easily replace one form of worship with another, failing to achieve true self-liberation. Thus, Zarathustra's partial victory is both hopeful and bittersweet. His followers are laughing and embracing joy, but true freedom, Nietzsche suggests, will come only when they learn to laugh with him, a laughter that celebrates life itself, unburdened by external idols or empty reverence. Until then, their awakening remains incomplete, a humorous but poignant reminder of the challenge in transcending old beliefs and embracing genuine self-overcoming. Chapter 78, The Donkey Festival. Zarathustra's outburst, donkey worship and divine controversy. At this point in the litany, Zarathustra couldn't contain himself any longer. He cried out, "Yee-ah!" even louder than the donkey, and leaped into the midst of his frenzied guests. "What are you doing, you grown-up children?" he exclaimed, pulling up those who were praying on the ground. "If anyone else, except Zarathustra, had seen you like this, everyone would think you are the worst blasphemers or the silliest old women with your new belief. And you, old Pope, how can you justify adoring a donkey as if it were God?" The Pope replied, "O Zarathustra, forgive me, but in matters of divinity, I am more enlightened than you. It is better to worship God in this form than not at all. Ponder this statement, my exalted friend, and you will see the wisdom in it. The one who said God is a spirit took the greatest step towards unbelief ever taken on earth. Such a statement is not easily reversed. My old heart leaps and rejoices because there is still something to worship on earth. Forgive me, O Zarathustra, with the heart of an old, pious pontiff." Zarathustra turned to the wanderer and shadow and said, "You call yourself a free spirit, and yet you engage in such idolatry and hierolatry here. You are behaving worse than with your brown girls, you misguided new believer." The wanderer and shadow replied, "It is a sad state of affairs, and you are right. But what can I do? The old god has come back to life, O Zarathustra. You may say what you will, the ugliest man is to blame for it all. He has revived him, and if he claims to have once killed him, the death of God is always just a prejudice." Zarathustra then turned to the old magician and said, "And you old magician, what have you done? Who should believe in you in this age of freedom when you believe in such divine donkeyism? It was a foolish thing you did. How could you, a clever man, do something so foolish?" The magician replied, "O Zarathustra, you are right. It was a foolish thing, and it was also repugnant to me." Finally, Zarathustra addressed the spiritually conscientious one, saying, "And you, consider and reflect. Does anything here go against your conscience? Is your spirit too pure for this prayer and the incense of these devotees?" The spiritually conscientious one replied, There is something about this spectacle that even does good to my conscience. Perhaps I dare not believe in God, but it is certain that God, in this form, seems most worthy of belief to me. God is believed to be eternal, as the devout testify. He who has so much time takes his time. As slow and as foolish as possible, yet such a being can still go very far. And someone with too much spirit might easily become infatuated with stupidity and folly. Think of yourself, O Zarathustra. Even you could become a donkey due to an excess of wisdom. Doesn't the true sage willingly choose the crookedest paths? The evidence supports it, O Zarathustra, your own evidence. And you, finally, said Zarathustra, turning towards the ugliest man who was still on the ground, offering wine to the donkey. Tell me, you nondescript, what have you been up to? You seem transformed, your eyes shine, the mantle of the sublime covers your ugliness. What did you do? Is it true what they say, that you have awakened him again? And why? Wasn't he killed and disposed of for good reasons? You yourself seem awakened. What did you do? Why did you turn around? Why did you convert? Speak, you nondescript. O Zarathustra, replied the ugliest man, you are a rogue. Whether he still lives again, or is thoroughly dead, who among us knows that best? I ask you. But one thing I do know, I learned it from you once, O Zarathustra. The one who wants to kill most thoroughly laughs. One does not kill with anger but with laughter, you once said. O Zarathustra, you hidden one, you destroyer without wrath, you dangerous saint, you are a rogue. Return to earthly kingdom, rejecting heaven for the kingdom of earth. But then, as Zarathustra observed these playful responses, he jumped back to the door of his cave. Turning to all his guests, he exclaimed with a strong voice, "O you jesters, every one of you, you tricksters! Why do you feign and conceal yourselves from me? How your hearts convulsed with delight and mischief, because you had once again become like children, pious children at that, because you did as children do, prayed, folded your hands and said, 'Good God!' But now I beseech you, leave this nursery, my own cave, where childishness has been taking place today. Outside, cool down your hot childishness and heart turmoil. Indeed, unless you become like little children, you will not enter that kingdom of heaven." And Zarathustra pointed upwards with his hands. But we have no desire to enter the kingdom of heaven. We have become men, and so we want the kingdom of earth. A joyful Zarathustra, new celebrations and the donkey festival. And once again, Zarathustra spoke, saying, "O my new friends, you strange ones, you higher individuals, how much I delight in you now. Since you have regained your joy, you have truly all blossomed forth, and it seems to me that such flowers as you require new celebrations. A bit of valiant nonsense, some divine service, a donkey festival, an old joyful Zarathustra fool, a boisterous one to brighten your souls. Do not forget this night and this donkey festival, you higher individuals. You devised it when you were with me, and I consider it a good omen. Only the convalescents conceive such things. And if you should celebrate this donkey festival again, do it out of love for yourselves, and also out of love for me, and in my remembrance." Thus spoke Zarathustra. In the donkey festival, Nietzsche uses humor to confront the absurdities of worship and belief, illustrating how even those who consider themselves higher men are prone to revert to old, unquestioned symbols. When Zarathustra catches his followers bowing before a donkey, he is both dismayed and amused as he sees his teachings misunderstood and his friends regressing to worship what he considers a laughable, crude symbol. His scolding, calling them grown-up children and accusing them of acting like blasphemers or old women, expresses his frustration with humanity's deep-seated need for worship, even when it makes little sense. Each character justifies this idolatry in their way, revealing the tensions between their lofty ideas and human frailties. The old pope's claim that any form of worship is better than none emphasizes the comfort found in familiar rituals, even when they defy reason. The pope suggests that having something, anything to revere on earth is preferable to abstract spirituality, a sentiment that subtly critiques the rise of disbelief in traditional gods. The wanderer, too, finds himself slipping back into old habits, admitting that the old god has come back to life, even if in a foolish form, because a total break from tradition can feel unsettling and incomplete. Zarathustra also confronts the old magician, who expresses his own disillusionment and self-disgust for participating in what he calls divine donkeyism. Despite his cleverness, the magician reveals how difficult it is to fully separate oneself from irrational customs. The spiritually conscientious one, on the other hand, finds some purity and virtue in this bizarre worship, suggesting that even folly, when earnest, can be refreshing. He defends the act as a reminder of humility and human imperfection, subtly reinforcing Zarathustra's message that even great wisdom can devolve into a foolish state. The ugliest man, whom Zarathustra questions last, becomes the most enigmatic figure, representing those who shift between belief and skepticism, keeping both options open. He reminds Zarathustra of his own teachings on laughter as a tool to subvert belief, hinting at the complexities of killing God and suggesting that doubt and laughter are more powerful than anger in dismantling faith. Through these responses, Nietzsche presents a critique of both traditional faith and modern skepticism, suggesting that neither fully escapes from the need for a central figure or object of devotion, even if that object is a lowly donkey. At the end of the chapter, Zarathustra calls his guests to leave behind childish worship and embrace the kingdom of earth instead. In an ironic twist, he suggests a festival of the donkey, a new celebration where laughter and joy replace reverence and ritual. This donkey festival is Zarathustra's way of encouraging his followers to embrace life's absurdities and to honor themselves, not through slavish devotion, but through light-hearted, joyful celebration. It's a call to find meaning here on earth, through direct experience and a playful spirit. Zarathustra's final words underline his vision of life. His followers, he believes, should live boldly, laughing even at their own ideals, embracing a life-affirming approach that neither worships nor scorns, but joyfully and courageously participates in the world. This chapter serves as a humorous yet profound critique of human dependence on symbols and structures, reminding us that true freedom requires not only rejecting outdated beliefs, but also laughing at the human tendency to replace one dogma with another. Nietzsche's message through Zarathustra is clear. A meaningful life is lived not in worship, but in celebration, facing reality without false piety, embracing folly, and transforming it into wisdom. Chapter 79. The Drunken Song. Embracing midnight's revelry and profound joy. Meanwhile, one by one, they had gone out into the open air, into the cool, contemplative night. Zarathustra, however, led the ugliest man by the hand to show him his night world, the great round moon, and the silvery waterfalls near his cave. Finally, they stood together, all of them old, but with comforted, brave hearts. They were astonished that life on earth could be so good. The mystery of the night drew closer to their hearts. Zarathustra thought to himself, "Oh, how much I now appreciate these higher individuals." But he didn't say it aloud out of respect for their happiness and their silence. Then, something astonishing happened in this long and remarkable day. The ugliest man began to make strange noises once more, and when he finally found his voice, he asked a clear and profound question that touched the hearts of all who heard it. "My friends, all of you," said the ugliest man, "what do you think? For the sake of this day, I am content to have lived my entire life. And even that is not enough for me. Life on earth is worth living. I will say to death, was that life? Well, once more, my friends, what do you think? Will you not, like me, say to death, was that life? For the sake of Zarathustra, well, once more." When the higher individuals heard his question, they became aware of their transformation and recovery, and they rushed to Zarathustra, thanking, honoring, caressing, and kissing his hands, each in their own way. Some laughed, and some cried. The old soothsayer danced with delight, filled not only with sweet wine, but also with the sweetness of life, having cast off all weariness. Some even say that the donkey danced that evening, perhaps due to the wine the ugliest man had given it to drink. Whether that's true or not, that night witnessed greater and rarer wonders than the dancing of a donkey. In the words of Zarathustra's proverb, what does it matter? Zarathustra's mysterious midnight discourse, unveiling deep thoughts. When this happened with the ugliest man, Zarathustra stood there as if inebriated. His gaze grew dull, his tongue faltered, and his feet stumbled. Who could fathom the thoughts that passed through Zarathustra's soul at that moment? It seemed as if his spirit had retreated and wandered ahead to remote distances, as if he were wandering on high mountain ridges, as the scripture says, between two seas, wandering between the past and the future like a heavy cloud. Gradually, as the higher men supported him, he regained some semblance of himself. He resisted the crowd of well-wishers with his hands, but remained silent. Suddenly, he turned his head quickly, as if he had heard something. Then he placed his finger on his lips and said, "Come." Immediately, the surroundings grew still and filled with an air of mystery. From the depths, the slow sound of a clock bell reached their ears. Zarathustra listened to it, as did the higher men. Then he placed his finger on his lips a second time and said, "Come, come, it is nearing midnight," and his voice had changed. However, he had not moved from his spot. The silence became even deeper and more mysterious. Everything listened intently, even the donkey, Zarathustra's noble animals, the eagle and the serpent, the cave of Zarathustra, the large cool moon, and the night itself. But Zarathustra placed his hand on his lips for the third time and said, "Come, come, come, let us now wander. It is the hour, let us wander into the night." Beware of midnight's voice, a terrifying and enchanting revelation. You higher individuals, it is approaching midnight. Then I shall speak something to your ears, as that old clock bell speaks to mine, mysteriously, terrifyingly, and warmly, as the midnight clock bell speaks to me, which has witnessed more than one human being, which has counted the painful heartbeats of your fathers. Ah, ah, how it sighs, how it laughs in its dreams, the old, deep, deep midnight. Hush, hush. At this time, many things are heard that cannot be heard during the day. Now, in the cool air, when all the tumult in your hearts has quieted down, now it speaks, now it is heard, now it infiltrates overwrought nocturnal souls. Ah, ah, how the midnight sighs, how it laughs in its dream. Do you not hear how it speaks to you, mysteriously, terrifyingly and warmly, the old, deep, deep midnight? O man, beware. The world's deep mysteries, midnight musings and cosmic questions. Woe to me, where has time gone? Have I not descended into deep wells? The world sleeps. Ah, ah, the dog howls, the moon shines. I would rather die than tell you what my midnight heart now thinks. I have already died. It is all over. Spider, why do you spin around me? Do you want blood? Ah, ah, the dew falls, the hour approaches. The hour in which I shiver and freeze, which asks and asks and asks, who has the courage for it? Who will be the master of the world? Who will declare, "Thus shall you flow, you great and small streams"? The hour is approaching. O man, you higher man, pay attention. This discourse is for sensitive ears, for your ears. What does deep midnight's voice truly say? Midnight's call, a melodic journey into profound happiness and unhappiness. It carries me away, my soul dances. Day's work, day's work. Who will be the master of the world? The moon is calm, the wind is still. Ah, ah, have you flown high enough already? You have danced, but a leg is not a wing. You good dancers, now all delight is over. Wine has turned to dregs, every cup has become brittle, and the graves murmur. You have not flown high enough. Now the graves murmur, "Free the dead. Why is it such a long night? Doesn't the moon make us drunk?" You higher individuals, free the graves, awaken the corpses. Ah, why does the worm still burrow? The hour is approaching. The clock bell tolls, the heart still thrills, the woodworm still burrows, the heartworm. Ah, ah, the world is deep. The lyre's midnight tune, revelations of the deepest suffering and joy. Sweet lyre, I love your sound, your intoxicating, enchanting sound. How far and how long your sound has reached me, from the distant shores of love. You old clock bell, you sweet lyre, every pain has torn at your heart, the pain of fathers, forefathers, ancestors. Your speech has matured, like the golden autumn in the afternoon, like my anchorite heart. Now you say, the world itself has ripened, the grapes turn brown. Now it wishes to die from happiness. Higher individuals, do you not feel it? There mysteriously wells up an aroma, a scent of eternity, a rosy, blessed, brown, golden wine scent of ancient happiness, of drunken midnight death happiness which sings, "The world is deep, deeper than the day can comprehend. Midnight's warning, grasping the secrets of the world's profound depth. Leave me be, leave me be. I am too pure for you. Do not touch me. Hasn't my world just become perfect now? My skin is too pure for your hands. Leave me be, you dull, foolish, stupid day. Isn't midnight brighter? The purest souls shall rule the world, the least known, the strongest, the midnight souls, who shine brighter and deeper than any day. O day, are you searching for me? Are you seeking my happiness? I am rich for you, lonely, a treasure trove, a chamber of gold. O world, do you desire me? Am I worldly for you? Am I spiritual for you? Am I divine for you? But day and world, you are too coarse. Have cleverer hands, reach for deeper happiness, reach for deeper unhappiness, reach for some God. Do not reach for me. My unhappiness, my happiness is deep, you strange day, but I am no God, no God's hell. Its misery is deep. Drunken lyre and midnight revelations, navigating suffering and joy. God's suffering is deeper, O strange world. Grasp at God's suffering, not at me. What am I? A drunken, sweet lyre, a midnight lyre, a bell-frog that no one understands, but it must speak before the deaf ones, you higher individuals. For you do not understand me. Gone, gone, O youth, O noon, O afternoon. Now evening, night, and midnight have arrived. The dog howls, the wind. Is the wind not like a dog? It whines, it barks, it howls. Ah, ah, how she sighs, how she laughs, how she wheezes and pants, the midnight. How she speaks soberly now, this drunken poetess. Has she perhaps overindulged in her drunkenness? Has she become overly awake? Is she meditating? She contemplates her suffering in a dream, the old, profound midnight, and even more so her joy. For even though sorrow may be deep, joy is deeper still than grief can ever be. The vineyard's praise, bleeding grapes, cruelty, and profound joy. You grapevine, why do you praise me? Have I not cut you? I am cruel and you bleed. What does your praise of my drunken cruelty mean? Whatever has become perfect, everything mature, desires to die. That's what you say. Blessed be the vintner's knife. But everything immature desires to live. Alas, woe says, away with you, go away, sorrow. But everything that suffers desires to live, to become mature, lively and yearning, yearning for the higher, the brighter, the further. I want heirs, says everything that suffers. I want children. I do not want myself. But joy does not want heirs. It does not want children. Joy wants itself, eternity, recurrence, everything like itself. Woe says, break, bleed, you heart, wander, you leg, fly, you wing, onward, upward, you pain. Well then, cheer up, my old heart. Woe says, away with you. Joy's desire for eternity, embracing sorrow, blessings and love. Higher individuals, what do you think? Am I a fortune teller, or a dreamer, or a drunkard, or a dream interpreter, or a midnight bell, or a drop of dew, or a vapor and fragrance of eternity? Don't you hear it? Don't you smell it? Right now, my world has become perfect. Midnight is also midday. Pain is also joy. Curse is also blessing. Night is also a sun. Go away, or you will discover that a sage is also a fool. Have you ever said yes to one joy? Oh, my friends, then you have said yes to all sorrow. All things are intertwined, interlaced, and enamored. Have you ever wanted something to come back twice? Have you ever said, you please me, happiness, stay, moment? Then you wanted everything to return, everything anew, everything eternal, everything intertwined, interlaced, and enamored. Oh, then you loved the world, eternal ones, you loved it eternally and for all time. And even to sorrow you say, away, go, but come back, for joy's all want, eternity. Joy's thirst for eternity, embracing the richness of life's contradictions. Joy desires the eternity of all things. It desires honey and dregs, drunken midnight, graves, the consolation of grave tears, gilded evening red. What does joy not desire? It is thirstier, heartier, hungrier, more frightening, more mysterious than all sorrow. It desires itself, it bites into itself, the ring's will writhes within it. It desires love, it desires hate, it is overly rich, it gives, it throws away, it begs for someone to take from it, it thanks the taker, it would gladly be hated. So rich is joy that it thirsts for woe, for hell, for hate, for shame, for the lame, for the world, for this world, oh, you know it well. You higher individuals, it longs for you, this joy, this irrepressible, blessed joy. For your sorrow, you failures. For failures, all eternal joy longs. For joys all want themselves, and that's why they also want grief. O happiness, O pain, O break you heart. You higher individuals, learn that joys want eternity. Joys want the eternity of all things. They want profound, deep eternity. Zarathustra's roundelay, reveling in profound joy and deep eternity. Have you now grasped my song? Have you understood what it means? Well then, rejoice. You higher individuals, sing now my roundelay. Sing now for yourselves the song named once more, with the meaning, unto all eternity. Sing, you higher individuals, Zarathustra's roundelay. O man, take heed. What does the voice of deep midnight truly say? I slept my sleep. From the deepest dream I've awakened and proclaim, the world is profound, deeper than daylight can perceive. Profound is its sorrow, joy, deeper still than grief can be. Sorrow says, depart, go, but joys all seek eternity, seek deep, profound eternity. The Drunken Song is one of Nietzsche's most passionate and enigmatic chapters in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, celebrating life's inherent contradictions and the profundity of joy interwoven with sorrow. Zarathustra and his followers move outside under the night sky, and in this stillness, the higher individuals are struck by an appreciation for life that almost feels otherworldly. Here, Nietzsche explores one of his core ideas, eternal recurrence, as the ugliest man, once resentful of life's hardships, now declares he would gladly live his life again and again. This willingness to embrace the entirety of one's existence, with its highs and lows, aligns with Nietzsche's ideal, a life so meaningful and complete that one would choose to relive it perpetually. Zarathustra, observing the transformation in his followers, experiences his own moment of revelation. He seems overwhelmed by a vision of the eternal nature of existence, staggering in a near-drunken state. Midnight, a symbol of mystery and introspection, emerges as a voice that calls to them, whispering truths that are heard only when the usual distractions of daytime are silenced. It's a powerful moment where Zarathustra, surrounded by his followers, is caught between states of consciousness, pondering the depth of life itself and realizing that the greatest wisdom often arrives in the quiet of the night. In the Drunken Song, Nietzsche deepens the idea that joy and sorrow are not opposites, but rather two sides of the same profound experience. Midnight, in its terrifying warmth, becomes a metaphor for this depth. Zarathustra hears the voice of deep midnight, which conveys that the world's sorrow is deep, yet joy is deeper still, a notion that challenges the typical view of happiness and suffering. Instead of avoiding pain, Nietzsche suggests that true joy is found in the ability to embrace it fully, for only in accepting life's struggles and losses can one experience the profoundest joys. Nietzsche also plays with the image of the grapevine and the vintner, suggesting that everything that reaches maturity desires to die. Just as a grape is harvested and pressed to make wine, each life must come to an end, but this completion, though painful, is part of what makes life rich and meaningful. Through Zarathustra, Nietzsche asserts that joy does not wish to create heirs or offspring. It wants only itself, desiring eternity. Suffering, on the other hand, yearns to overcome itself and to create something beyond its current state, seeking meaning through transformation and renewal. In this paradox, Nietzsche highlights how joy and suffering are intertwined and essential to a life worth living. The song, known as Zarathustra's roundelay, echoes this theme of recurrence and eternity, expressing a yearning for deep, profound eternity. This repeated affirmation, once more, challenges his followers to see life, with all its struggles and passions, as worth reliving indefinitely. It asks whether they too can accept life's entire cycle and say yes to it all, choosing joy in the face of inevitable sorrow. Through these rich metaphors, the Drunken Song elevates the notion that joy is not mere happiness. It is a willingness to embrace every aspect of life, knowing that joy contains an element of pain. By the end, Zarathustra's followers, swept up in his vision, experience a unity of spirit that transcends their individual doubts and fears. They dance, laugh, cry, and revel in the understanding that joy, to be genuine, must include the courage to face life's mysteries and pains, saying to existence, yes, once more. Thus, Nietzsche brings his work to a culmination, inviting readers to embrace life fully, not in spite of its contradictions, but because of them, finding meaning in the eternal interplay of joy and sorrow. Chapter 80. The Sign. In the morning after that night, Zarathustra leaped from his bed, his loins girded, and emerged from his cave like a radiant morning sun emerging from the shadowy mountains. "O great star," he spoke, as he had spoken before, "O deep eye of happiness, what would your happiness be without those for whom you shine? And if they remained in their chambers while you are already awake, coming forth to give and distribute, how would your proud modesty reproach them? But they still sleep, these higher men, while I am awake. They are not my true companions. I do not wait for them here in my mountains. I want to be at my work, in my day. But they do not understand the signs of my morning. My footsteps are not the call to awakening for them. They still slumber in my cave. Their dreams still drink from my drunken songs. The attentive ear for me, the obedient ear, is still missing in their limbs." Zarathustra had spoken this to his heart as the sun rose, and he looked upward, hearing the sharp cry of his eagle. "Very well," he called upwards. "This pleases me. My animals are awake, for I am awake. My eagle is awake, and like me, honors the sun. It grasps the new light with eagle talons. You are my true animals. I love you. But I still lack my true companions." As Zarathustra spoke, he suddenly became aware that he was surrounded and fluttered around as if by innumerable birds. The whirring of wings and the crowding around his head was so intense that he closed his eyes. It was as if a cloud of arrows were descending upon a new enemy, but in reality it was a cloud of love, showering upon a new friend. "What is happening to me?" thought Zarathustra in his astonishment, and he slowly sat down on a large stone near the entrance of his cave. As he reached out with his hands, trying to repel the tender birds surrounding him, above, below, and all around, he unexpectedly touched a mass of thick, warm, shaggy hair. At the same time, he heard a long, soft lion's roar in front of him. "The sign has come," said Zarathustra, and a change came over his heart. Before him lay a yellow, powerful animal, resting its head on his knee, unwilling to leave him out of love. It behaved like a dog finding its old master again. The doves, too, were eager with their love. Whenever a dove flew over its nose, the lion shook its head in wonder and amusement. Zarathustra spoke only one word: "My children are near, my children." Then he fell silent. Tears welled up in his eyes and fell upon his hands. He paid no further attention to anything, sitting there motionless, not pushing away the animals. The doves fluttered around him, perched on his shoulder, caressed his white hair, and showed endless tenderness and joy. The strong lion licked the tears from Zarathustra's hands, roaring and growling gently. This is how the animals behaved. All of this went on for a long time, or perhaps a short time, for there is no time on earth for such things. Meanwhile, the higher men had awakened in Zarathustra's cave. They had gathered for a procession to meet him and give him their morning greeting. They realized he was no longer with them. When they reached the cave's entrance, their steps made noise, and the lion suddenly started. It turned away from Zarathustra, roaring loudly, and rushed towards the cave. The higher men, upon hearing the lion's roar, cried out in unison, fled back, and disappeared instantly. Zarathustra, stunned and bewildered, rose from his seat. He looked around, stood there in astonishment, inquired of his heart, pondered, and remained alone. He said slowly, "What did I just hear? What happened to me just now?" His memory returned to him, and he recalled everything that had happened between yesterday and today. He stroked his beard and said, "Indeed, this is the stone on which I sat yesterday morning. Here the soothsayer came to me, and here I first heard the cry of distress that I heard just now, the great cry of distress. Oh, you higher men, it was your distress that the old soothsayer predicted to me yesterday morning. He wanted to seduce and tempt me with your distress," Zarathustra continued. "He said to me, 'O Zarathustra, I come to seduce you to your final sin.'" to my final sin," cried Zarathustra, laughing angrily at his own words. "What has been reserved for me as my final sin?" Once again, Zarathustra became lost in thought, sat back on the large stone, and meditated. Suddenly, he jumped up and exclaimed, fellow suffering with the higher men." His face turned resolute. "Well, that has had its time. My suffering and my fellow suffering, what do they matter? Do I strive for happiness? I strive for my work. Well, the lion has come, my children are near, Zarathustra has matured, my time has come. This is my morning, my day begins. Arise now, arise, great noontide." Zarathustra left his cave, radiant and strong, like a morning sun emerging from dark mountains. In the sign, Zarathustra awakens to a morning that marks both a spiritual and personal turning point. Rising before his followers, he emerges with a sense of renewed purpose and clarity, realizing that the higher men he has gathered around him are still bound to his teachings and ideals, not yet capable of fully grasping or embodying them. They remain asleep, symbolizing their continued attachment to Zarathustra's guidance rather than their own inner strength. Zarathustra, now feeling the pull of his own path, senses they are not the true companions he once hoped for. They are his students, not equals. As he meditates on his solitude, a remarkable event unfolds. A lion, strong and noble, appears and rests its head upon his knee, accompanied by gentle doves. This vision is a powerful symbol, suggesting that Zarathustra's journey has matured. The lion, representing strength, courage, and the untamed spirit, signifies the arrival of Zarathustra's long-awaited sign that his time has come. The doves, often symbols of peace and grace, soften the scene, indicating an acceptance of life's duality and balance. Together, these animals convey a sense of harmony within Zarathustra, as he has integrated the fierce, independent spirit of the lion with the tenderness and openness of the doves. This convergence tells Zarathustra he no longer needs others' approval or companionship. He has arrived at a stage of self-sufficiency and inner fulfillment. The higher men, meanwhile, remain unaware of this transformation. When they finally awaken, the lion's powerful roar startles them, causing them to flee. This reaction illustrates the distance between Zarathustra's evolved state and their own. His followers, who once looked to him for strength and wisdom, are now unsettled by the power and independence he embodies. In their retreat, they reveal their unpreparedness to walk beside Zarathustra on the path to full self-realization. Zarathustra understands that his journey no longer includes fellow suffering with them. He is no longer weighed down by the need to share in or alleviate others' struggles. He is moving beyond sympathy, ready to fully embrace his purpose and his work. This chapter concludes with Zarathustra's recognition that his moment of fulfillment and action has arrived. The lion and doves have confirmed his readiness, and he no longer seeks the comfort of companions who cannot match his spirit. With a renewed sense of strength and focus, Zarathustra steps forward, like a morning sun, ready to enter his great noontide. In this scene, Nietzsche captures the necessity of complete independence, courage, and the embrace of one's own unique purpose. Zarathustra's journey is no longer about teaching or guiding others, but about fully manifesting his own path, illuminated by the wisdom he has earned. If you liked the video, then I urge you to like and subscribe. And if you're ready for more, then these videos are a good place to start. See you in the next video.